What's going on, Arc Junkies? Welcome to show number 273. Today I'm chatting with Drew Petty. Drew's a business owner out of Knoxville, Tennessee. If you're part of the welding community on Instagram, you've no doubt come across this profile. He and his team do a little bit of everything when it comes to welding and fabrication. It was an absolute pleasure having him on the show as this week's guest. During our conversation, Drew shares some valuable insights into his welding journey, starting and managing a business, bidding on work, and the highs and lows of running a welding venture. This week's episode is a must-listen if you're considering starting your own welding business or seeking inspiration to take your existing enterprise to the next level. In other news, y'all may have heard that I'm taking over Underground Metalworks from the very talented Stephanie Hoffman. My business partner Rob and I have been working really hard at the new location to start classes in late July. So if you're interested in taking classes at the new Orlando location, head on over to undergroundmetalworks.com to sign up for classes. There's a little something for everyone to include week-long comprehensive classes, weekend TIG classes, weekend MIG classes, and evening classes as well. I'll put a link in the show notes to make it even easier for y'all to sign up for classes as well as check out all the dates. Before we get into today's episode, a quick word from our supporters. Today's episode of the Arc Junkies Podcast is brought to you by CK Worldwide, the standard in TIG welding. Are you looking to step up your TIG game? Look no further than CK Worldwide, the industry leader in innovative and reliable TIG welding solutions. With more patents on product designs and improvements than anyone else, CK Worldwide sets the standard for TIG welding equipment. Whether you're a professional welder or a welding hobbyist, their exclusive innovations like gas saver kits, max flow water cooling technology, and wedge collets make your TIG welding process smoother and more efficient than ever before. And now they're excited to announce the launch of their new MT375. A powerful 375-amp AC-DC welder with a dual-pump water cooler, cart torch package, and more. The new welding machine is packaged with a newly patented 2-in-1 steady grip foot pedal, which incorporates a fingertip control into the foot pedal for a variety of different welding applications. Don't settle for subpar welding equipment. Choose CK Worldwide to experience quality and performance. With a reputation built on decades of experience and dedication to innovation, CK Worldwide is the only choice for top-of-the-line TIG welding equipment. Visit ckworldwide.com and use the Find a Dealer tab to locate the closest dealer near you. CK Worldwide, the standard in TIG welding. We're also brought to you by Outlaw Leather. It's time to gear up and get ready for the best in the business. Outlaw Leather. Experience the unmatched quality, durability, and style that only Outlaw Leather can provide. Outlaw Leather specializes in handcrafted welding gear and accessories designed for those who demand the best. Made with pride in the USA, every product is crafted with the utmost care and attention to detail. From custom welding hoods that boast impeccable comfort and safety to rugged tool bags that withstand the test of time, Outlaw Leather has everything you need to make your job easier, safer, and more efficient. Visit outlawleather.com today and discover a world of premium handcrafted welding gear and accessories. Give yourself the edge you deserve with Outlaw Leather, because when you're working hard, you need gear that works just as hard as you do. And right now, you can save 15% off all in-stock leather goods when you use code word ARCJunkies at checkout at outlawleather.com. We're also brought to you by Rockmount Research and Alloys. Attention all maintenance welders. It's time to upgrade your arsenal with the powerful Tartan AAA rod from Rockmount Welding, the welding electrode that's revolutionizing the industry. The Tartan AAA is a true all-around performer designed to excel in various applications and materials. Its advanced formulation ensures smooth, clean, and strong welds on low to medium alloy steels. Experience unparalleled versatility and ease of use with the Tartan AAA rod. From maintenance to fabrication, this electrode is perfect for welders of all skill level, guaranteeing impressive results every time. Upgrade your welding experience with Tartan AAA rod from Rockmount Welding and discover why professionals and hobbyists alike are making the switch. Don't settle for anything less than the best. Ready to see Tartan AAA rod in action? Visit rockmountwelding.com today and explore their extensive range of top-quality welding solutions. Elevate your welding game with Rockmount Welding and never look back. And right now, you can get a free 1-pound pack of Tartan AAA when you spend up to $250 at rockmountwelding.com and use code word AJP at checkout. Get the job done right the first time, every time with Rockmount. All right, you know what time it is. Fire up your machine, drop your hood, and turn me up 5.
You're listening to the Arc Junkies Podcast, helping you make every weld better than your last with each episode. And now your host, Jason Becker.
All right, Drew, welcome to the show, man. It's an honor having you on here.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. I apologize for it taking so long for us to get together, but busy schedules are busy schedules. So.
Oh yeah, I mean that's just the name of the game. I mean, like you got a business of your own. I'm running a couple businesses myself. It's hard to get schedules to align.
Absolutely, but I'm glad we did.
Oh yeah, likewise, man. No, I definitely appreciate it. I wanted to catch up with you at FabTech, and I was just all over the place.
FabTech's a blur. There's you want to see a million people and a million things, and you get to see a dozen of both, and yeah, you're just all over the place. But it's such a great time. So
yeah, you coming to the one in Orlando?
Yeah, I just found out about that. Got that email a month ago or whatever, and I was like, hey, that's a great spot for it. So like, absolutely, yeah, we'll be there. We're especially being on the Eastern Seaboard. It's easy for us to get down there, and close enough. So no different than going to Chicago, not much further. So
right, you typically drive up to Chicago?
We do. It's just about the same. We can get there in eight and a half hours, and by the time you fly and check in and do the thing and land and then try to get into the city, it's just like we can be in town just as quick. So we drive, and then you also get to haul back everything you score at FabTech without having to worry about shipping and stuff. So
that's true. That's always my problem. I try to pack light on the way up there.
That's it. You hustle these deals up with some companies, and you got a saw in the back seat of a rental car.
Right.
You're trying to get them. So it's good.
Yeah, those last minute deals there Friday afternoon.
That's right. Yeah, you got to hit them up.
Yeah, and I ran into Jason Marburger, and we were chatting with Fireball Tool, and he was like, "Oh, here, take this. You need one of these in your shop." And I'm like, "Holy crap, man! Like, I'm gonna have to take out I'm gonna have to go buy more luggage to carry all this stuff home, and then pay the overweight fees."
Yeah. I remember watching last year in Atlanta. J.D. Brewer got the Fireball vise that was in the Fireball booth, and him trying to get that god awful big vise out of the arena and get it home. It was funny to watch him finding dollies and ratchet straps and whatever else just to drag that thing out of the
but it's worth it. I think that's like a $1,600 vise.
Oh yeah, hands down worth it. But it was just fun to watch him go into
struggle with it to get it out of there.
Yeah, because it's more than one man can pick up. It's a three man pick. But
you got to call like a specialty Uber driver. Be like, I'm requesting a pickup truck.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Damn. So now let's. So when you got into welding originally, or welding and fabrication, you started off doing a lot of like construction repair work, right?
Yeah. My background is heavy equipment and
line
the
boring.
Off-road industry. Yeah, I did a lot of line boring for about 3 years, enough that I never want to do it again. Could care less if I do. But a lot of heavy equipment work, a lot of mining, a lot of wear plates and bucket liners and adapters on excavator hose and stuff like that. So a lot of heavy equipment, a lot of heavy dual shield work, a lot of 045 and 16th and a lot of high amperage stuff. Yeah, it was fun.
That stuff's fun to run. A lot of people don't like it.
No, I love it. I like being on the construction sites, and we still get out to do some of it. But being that's where kind of got my teeth, into it. It still is fun for me, and it's so fun. It's so second nature now because we've been doing it so long that it's almost like a day off. I mean, you get to go out and put a liner on a dozer. It's like, oh, this is a gravy day,
you just go on autopilot and let it rip.
Go to autopilot. You let it rip. Yeah, that's an easy day for a business owner. So, So I like to dabble in that. Started in the off-road world, doing engine swaps and differentials and lift kits and that kind of stuff when I was a late teenager and that kind of stuff. So kind of had the off-road bent, in my background as well. But yeah.
Oh, nice. Now, so what was it that made you kind of say, I've had enough of this. I'm going to go out and, I'm going to start my own business?
I mean, truth be told, just poor management. I had, some horrible management. It's one of those things where I've always been self-motivated. I don't need somebody to get me out of bed. I don't need micromanaged, and some facilities where that's what they expect their employees to be. Everybody's just micro. And I just felt myself to be able to be pretty autonomous. I never really wanted to be a business owner necessarily, but this was just what happened by virtue of finding my way through the industry and going, I don't know if I can deal with the management styles in the construction world, really. And that's kind of what it boiled down to. So ended up jumping ship and starting my own business. And we did a lot of heavy equipment work early on, a lot of dump trucks and asphalt paving machines and, different kind of a lot of repair work, which we still do a lot of repair work. But then it transferred into a lot of fabrication. Like we do a ton of new metal fab now. Still get into some specialty repairs and stuff, but we're not welding on lawnmower trailers and that kind of stuff anymore. We're doing trying to do and attempting to do more complicated problems. You know, I want to keep up in the bar on how complicated of a situation can you get yourself into. That's kind of what drives me anymore, is how tough is this problem and what's it worth to you, you know, and go from there.
So you like the challenge of it?
Love it. I mean, I feed off of it. Like, boring and monotonous is not me. I can't do the same thing every day. I want to get put in a situation that's complicated, and you've got to figure out how to regulate time and quality and stress and the emotions of, you know, heavy hitting jobs, and then just be able to execute. And that's what I try to do, is just focus on execution.
Yeah. That's one thing that I miss about the industry, is like being a problem solver. You know, be able to, you know, show up to a job site, you don't have what you need, or, you know, the prints aren't matching up with what needs to be done, and you got to get in there and you got to start solving problems and figuring things out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the unspoken side. And I think what's really the hardest to teach, there's a big void. There's some great ways to learn how to weld. There's great ways to learn how to fabricate. There's all of these videos, but what's really complicated and really can only be learned through experience is how do you think about these complicated problems to come up with this solution? Because your customers relying on you for the solution, and you've got to come up with it. And only time and having your feet in a lot of different arenas really develops that problem solving skill set, you know? And so that's what drives me now, is the welding part. And I hope I say this with some humility. The welding part's not the hard part anymore. It's the getting all of the pieces together and aligned so that the welding can happen. Right. And that's the problem. And so I like the more complicated it is, you know, until you get into, like, you know, total job site bullshit where somebody's asking you to do something that just should never be done.
Right.
But when you're called onto a site or called to a complicated fabrication project, and they're leaning on you for your expertise, and you've got to come up with something that makes sense with 9 different problems, and you've got to solve all of those at once with metals as your medium. That's the kind of stuff I like to get into.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. Like you said, a lot of people don't teach that. Like most schools and facilities, they focus in on the welding, and they burrow down on that hard, but nobody's really teaching the fabrication. That's one of the things that I tried to do in my program. I was like, yeah, I mean, it's great. You're going to be an awesome welder and everything. We're going to teach you that. That's the most technical part. That's going to get your foot in the door. But you got to be able to cut, fit, fabricate, troubleshoot, think on your feet, diagnose problems, come up with the solutions. And it's something that's very difficult to teach. So I like setting my students up for failure. Like, I'll go over there and mess with their machine, or like move their parts, or, you know, move the saw. Like, they think they got the saw dialed in, you know, you move it 5 degrees, let them go ahead and make a cut. It throws them off, you know, so you got to go back through, check out your equipment, you know, make sure everything's set up just right. But I mean, it's something it's very hard to teach, but everybody wants to focus on the welding portion. And I was actually testing a group of students the other day, and they're getting ready to graduate. So it was their last attempt at certifications and stuff. And they're, you know, all gung ho and everything about it. And I said, just so you guys know, I said, just randomly, how many, you know, like, what percentage of your day do you think you're going to be welding once you graduate this program? And they're like, oh yeah, probably like all day. And I was like, okay, like, break it down to a percentage. And they're like, you know, probably like 80-90%. I was like, no,
it's like
maybe
8%.
Yeah.
If you have a hard day, it's 8% arc on top.
I told them 20, because, like, if you're in a weld shop or whatever, I mean, that's what it's going to be. But if you get into like a fabrication shop, yeah, you're probably looking at 8, maybe 10% on a good day once you get everything prepped and fit and ready to go. Yeah. But those are the skills that you really need. The welding is definitely the most technical part. I mean, you got to get a lot of hood time. But having that skill set to be able to go in there and, you know, grab a set of blueprints and just start grabbing raw material, cutting it down to size, getting the lengths right, punching the holes, drilling holes in the right spot, that's going to be your breadwinner right there. That's what's going to keep you in the shop.
And that's welding with value added. Like, we can pump out. I think you were in the pipe world for a while, right? Am I wrong?
No, I did structural steel.
Structural stuff. Okay. You know, the pipe guys and that we can teach, and we can weld, and you can weld, and muscle memory is muscle memory. You get it, you got it, you can run that bead and all that. But the value added part is really the fabrication side. And that's where I think your value as an employee or a business owner, or, you know, any part of the industry, is understanding how the welding's just a part of fabrication. And anything you do, if you're on an assembly line as a MIG welder, just gluing the same parts up, your weld is just a simple component of the larger fabrication process that somebody's managing at a higher level, right? Mm-hmm. So, and the problem with teaching it, I talk about this with some friends, is we want things in 90-second videos, right? I mean, we've come to get used to 1 minute, Instagram videos and short clips. But if you were to explain complicated problems, like I need a 48-minute YouTube video to explain to you how I was thinking about this project. And it's hard. Nobody's, we're checked out, we're at minute 4 where our attention spans are gone. And it's hard to teach. And I've got a few young guys in my life that I'm really proud of that I've just watched. They just observe and they watch and they've ground where they become incredibly good problem solvers, and that's where the value is. I mean, that's what I think we need to sell to kids. And the only way to get it is put your foot in the door. Learn how to weld. Yes. Be a jam up welder, know your tools, know your equipment, know your settings, like all of that. That's a gateway drug into the better outcome of high end fabrication stuff. In my mind, that's in my opinion.
No, 100%. I mean, we've created an entire generation of TikTokers. So if you can't get me interested or keep me interested in 60 to 90 seconds, I'm out of here. I'm scrolling. I'm on to the next video. So that's been the hardest part. But like you said, like our generation, I mean, we're probably right around the same age, is I watched a lot of people on different job sites do their jobs. And not only did I learn exactly what to do, a lot of times what was more valuable is I learned exactly what not to do.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Learn what mistakes not to make. If you don't have to make them yourself and you just know where the pitfall is, avoid the pitfall. Yeah. Like, absolutely. Learn from other people's mistakes. Absolutely.
Yeah, that pays dividends.
It does, but you got to be paying attention. I mean, you just can't stress that enough in these conversations, especially as you've got to keep your eyes open all the time and be paying attention to what, especially the more seasoned guys around you and the way they think. And even social media can be really good for that, but you got to read the caption about how the job got done. Don't just look at the pictures and hearing the Dr. Dre music overlays or whatever. Like read it and pour into it. If you're a 21-year-old hungry to do the kind of stuff that some of us get to do, you're gonna have to pay attention. You're gonna have to pay attention and drown out what's BS and focus on the important stuff, the technical stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of, I've spoke about it before on the podcast. That's kind of the hard part about, social media in general is everybody's showing the highlight reels. Nobody's showing the, oh shit, like I misquoted this job and now I'm underwater and I still have to pay my guys. They're showing, oh yeah, you're like, here's my boat, here's my truck, I own my own business, like all the glamorous stuff. Nobody's showing you the struggle. So you don't see that. So you get a bunch of kids in welding school that they want to come out and they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to, as soon as I get out of school, I'm going to go buy a rig truck and I'm going to get out there and I'm going to start welding. It's like, just slow down, Scooter, pump your brakes. You need to, I tell people, go out and get at least 5 to 7 years of experience,
100%.
At least 5 to 7, make your mistakes on somebody else's dime.
Yeah.
You go out there. I mean, you can lose your ass really quick and you can get into like big legal problems too.
You can, and you can say yes to things you think you're ready for that you're not. And then that's the key, really the underlying key to business success, I think, is knowing what you're capable of and then executing that and then keep bumping up your comfort zone. And that's a slow thing. You're bumping the edge of that comfort zone all the time. If you're on level 3 and you try to jump to level 9, you get your legs cut out from under you. So it's committing to that slow process. It's just saying, we just got out of weld school. This is a slow process to get to where, these guys are that you see on Instagram doing all of these things. It's just, you're not going to get out of welding school and dive into complicated things because you're not ready, and so it's, like you said, just do it on somebody else's dime, learn something, go get your experience somewhere. And I have a lot of young guys reach out to me and say, hey, I'm graduating weld school in May and I'm going to rig up or start my own thing. And, and what's your advice, and I've got almost a copy and paste response of just don't do it. You're not ready. You don't know enough. And I don't try to hurt their feelings, but try to be very blunt and honest with them because you came to me for advice. Don't do it. Like you got, I think you got one shot at this. And if you get burnt out on the business end, especially too quickly, the odds of you wanting to jump back in the pool when you actually know something as stressful as you already know it to be is pretty slim. So wait until your shot's ready, wait until you're ready, till the people around you that you trust say, man, you're ready. And then jump off and take all the risk in the world. But go get a 8 to 5 and weld and build some things and make some mistakes and, get your life started. And then then when the time's right, you'll know it. You'll know it when you're rising above your peers in your workplace, and you're showing that you've got the most talent, and you're executing on the best level, and you're problem solving, and doing all these things. You'll know when you're getting close to ready. I think you will.
Yeah, and that's the hard part is like, hey, like I don't want to bust your bubble or anything, but you just don't know enough coming right out of welding school to go out there. I mean, like you're really good at 6-inch fillets and grooves.
Great.
Yeah, but like go out there and have to deal with OSHA one time. Go out there, go get involved with the bidding process and see what that's like. Lose your ass on your first job. And, I mean, there's so much to it. And like a lot of them, they don't have the business sense. They're not too savvy in the business world. So, I tell people like go to, I don't know if you guys have the same thing where you're at. I'm sure they've got them all around the nation. Small business development centers.
Yeah.
So we have a bunch of them down here in Florida. And like when I was going to set up my small business, like I went in and talked to them. We set up an entire business plan. Like they have free classes you can take on like being an entrepreneur, leadership classes, like all these different skill sets that you need. Because everybody thinks, I'm just going to go out there and, I'm going to bid on a job. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to do it. I'm going to get paid and I'm going to make a bunch of money.
Yeah.
Well,
if it were only that easy.
If it was only that easy, we'd have a world full of, entrepreneurs and rig welders everywhere. Right. But I mean, it's not the case. Just because you're good at welding and fabricating doesn't mean you're going to be good in that business aspect. You got to be very smart. You got to be financially savvy. You have to learn to separate your emotions from money. I think that's the biggest thing that I learned in business was separating my emotions from my dollars. That business account.
Yeah. And you touch on a very important thing, and it's part of the reason why I don't deal with a lot of homeowners is homeowners, they have an emotional connection to their money, and they are always looking for most homeowners are looking for the most economical way to solve a problem, right? Put a handrail up or whatever. But in the construction, in the manufacturing world, you have people with big time problems that need professional solutions, and money's always an object, of course, but they're willing to pay for that higher level work. And you get into the customers that don't have that emotional connection to your money. And the only way you can flourish in that world is if you've disconnected your emotions from that money. I've worked plenty of days in the 13 years of business for free. I've worked a lot of days, especially early on, made a lot of mistakes. And I've worked for free, if not at a loss, many days, if not weeks. On the flip side of that, when you can disconnect yourself from the emotions of the dollar and what this costs and that costs, and you start to put things on paper with your bids and your own personal budgets and all of that kind of stuff in a way that is very strategic and intentional, and you develop those plans, that's, what happens on this desk is why the business works. What happens in the shop floor is how it continues working. But what happens that really matters is from the desk, from the bidding process and who your customers are. So yeah, I mean that emotional disconnect from your money is a great topic to touch on, because most of us, at least most business owners I know, and most guys that get into welding and I've never known anybody that grew up rich that ended up becoming a welder.
Right.
Like, that's not a thing. And so, we all start a business with $1 and a dream kind of deal. And you're just like, you've got to figure out real quickly how to emotionally disconnect from the monetary side of your business and look for the ways that are going to meet your goals and move you forward. That, it can be really tricky. It can be really tricky, but that's a great topic.
Yeah. It's a fine balance between that, because not only, you don't want to end up and go out and buy specific tools that are going to make your life easier, and it's going to make you money, because you're like, oh man, that tool's, $800, $900, and I've got $1,500 in my account. Okay. Yeah. Well, you can get that tool that, that next job's going to pay for that and then some. So go out there and buy it. I know it's, and like you said, like most of us grew up poor, or, didn't grow up well.
At least working class.
Working class. Right. Like both my parents were blue collar, and like I had the same upbringing. So like when I got into business for myself, I'm like, man, I got to go out. I got to go buy this chop saw, and it's like $300. I got a porta-band in the back of the truck. I can do it. And then next thing you know, you bid this job for 8 hours. You're out there 15, 16 hours. You're losing money every hour after what you quoted. When I could have just bought that chop saw for $300 and went out there and just, done. And, actually, turned a profit on that job. Now I'm taking it as a loss. And that's the stuff you're going to learn working for somebody else that 5 to 7 years, learning on their dime, like what to do, what not to do.
Yeah. And looking what tools sit on the shelf and rarely get used. Those are the ones you don't need to buy when you get started.
Yep.
Like take notes. And then, the opposite end of those spectrum are you can certainly get eaten up with tool lust. We all love tools. It's how we make our living.
I got a problem.
You can eat up with tool lust and I've got a problem big time. And you can go spend too much, wrap yourself in a lot of debt that your business isn't modeled enough to get out of. Or you can also, I think I was on the conservative side. I was too conservative early on because scared about money and didn't invest in the right things quick enough. Now I caught up with some of that stuff, but I was 3 years too late at getting a CNC plasma table. I should have bought it 3 years before I did, if not 5. Those kinds of things that you realize you don't know how valuable of an asset that is in a shop. And the sooner you can get it in the door, the better, and learn how to use it and get past that learning curve. So there's those opposite ends of the spectrum of spending too much too fast, or also being too slow and conservative. And I was too conservative myself.
Yeah, that was kind of my problem up front, because when I left education, I got into doing weld inspections and qualifications, and I'm pricing out all these different benders and stuff like that to do the work. I was talking to my buddy out in Texas who owns like a full-fledged welding testing facility. And we walked through the lab, and he's like, I was like, oh yeah, I'm planning on, getting one of these benders, but they got the, the hand pump one or whatever. And he's like, no. He's like, that don't go cheap. And I was like, what? And he's like, time is money. And the faster you can get that stuff done, the better off you're going to be. And I was like, okay, well, I'll step up to, like air over hydraulic, that'll be a little bit easier, a little bit quicker. And he's like, no, go for that electric one. And I was like, ooh, that's $5,500.
That's $5,500.
That's $5,500. I was like, damn, like I've never spent that kind of money on a tool before.
Yeah.
But then again, like I can rip out 20 sets of coupons in maybe the course of 5 minutes. Yeah. I mean, it's it's slicker than shit. I mean, it just goes fast, and it's like, well, damn, I'm probably done an hour and a half before, I anticipated being done. Cool. Like I've just made some more money, and now I got more time to spend with my family because that tool increased my time. And a lot of people, they have that hard time, or that difficulty of how long is this job actually going to take me?
Yeah.
And the more, and I don't want to like mislead anybody and say, hey, go out and buy the most expensive stuff you can get, like right off the rip. Like buy what you can afford. And as things come your way, start investing back into your company. Because a lot of people, they see this money, it's coming in, and they start putting it in their pocket. That's the only line of work they're going to be able to do. They're not going to be able to take on the bigger jobs. They're not going to be able to take on the jobs that are going to provide a little bit more money, for them, and whether they've hired employees or not. But they're not going to be able to do that because they're running off the same old shit. I work for companies like that, and it's like, damn, dude, they'd spend $1 to save a dime. You can't be like that. You have to invest in your equipment. You've got to invest in your people, because time is money. So if you bid this job for 40 hours and it's taking you 60, you're losing money. But if you bid that job at 40 and you're done in 20, well, guess what? That's good for everybody.
That's where the winnings are, right there. Yeah, I want to bid every job at 40 and get it done in 30 or less. It's that exactly. And you're always going to start grinding and doing things the slow way, but you got to cross that threshold at some point where you recognize that the efficiency in your process is lost. You don't have the hours to give away. I had all the hours in the day when I started, no kids, that kind of stuff. But 3 kids now, I'm working 50 hours a week and I'm going home, and 50 hours for most small business owners that's
pretty damn good.
Below normal.
Yeah, it's way below normal. You got to bump those numbers up.
No, I've intentionally bumped them down.
Yeah.
But through striving for efficiency, there's literally days I joke with my buddy Nick Bazatis a lot about efficiency. And there's literally days I got 3 machines running and I'm the only guy standing in the shop. I'm doing 3 things at once, and you learn to. I think a lot of our wins, or a lot of our successes and sustainability, has come from. I want people who work for me to focus on the task I've given them, right? Be completely tunnel visioned on the task I've given you, and don't be distracted. Don't be on your phone. Don't be thinking about the business side or what I'm doing. Think about what you're doing, right? And what I've given you to do. The business owner's job, I've got 5 projects running in my head all the time. Well, you don't start out that way. That's not the way you start out, with the ability to do that. But that side of you's got to sharpen as well. So I'm performing some final touches on a fab project while thinking about what I'm going to do as soon as I'm done. That needs to be followed by this and 3 more tasks by the end of the day. So you're staying ahead of yourself and then thinking of efficiency. So when you go to that toolbox for one tool, you also know what's 2 steps away, and you're grabbing that tool while you're there, and fewer steps. I mean, I probably think about efficiency too much, but I mean, like, when you're trying to run a small job shop, small welding business, efficiency is everything. So back to the tool subject, it's what tools are going to make you efficient, fast, and slick, and anything that automates, anything that automates that process for you. A tumbler for your plasma parts. I don't want to hit my parts with a grinder. I want to throw them in the tumbler and come back in 15 minutes, and poof, they're ready to go. They're cleaned up, deburred, deslagged, and I didn't hit them with a grinder, or anything like that makes things faster. An automatic bandsaw. There's several tools like that. We recently invested. It's a small investment, little $500 whip for the miller. But it's a 15-foot whip for the 255 that has your 4 program settings on the machine available with trigger taps. So you can be up inside of a weldment and tap the trigger twice, and it goes to program number 2. So if you need to change weld settings and positions inside of a weldment, you're not walking back and forth to your machine. And most people think, oh, that's stupid. The machine's 15 feet away. But I promise you, when you're doing that all day, every day for weeks on end, every up and down off of a weld table or down a ladder or whatever that you're welding on is time, money, and safety. And so like that whip is saving so much time and energy going back and forth the machine to dial in settings and stuff. So it's like and that's a small thing, but just as an example of that was an easy thing to invest in when I realized what efficiency it was going to garner us in the shop,
Right.
So all of that stuff, having multiple machines set up, I've got more welding machines than I could ever use. Right. We probably all do. But each one's set up with a different process because changeovers are a waste of time. Right. I've got a dual bottle card on a 252 with 045 dual shield set up in my spool gun. So I can go back and forth between the two, turn the machine on, poof, we're spool gunning, poof, we're dual shielding. Got two 255 set up with 035 hardwire for spray transfer and those kinds of things, and then we have 2 TIG dedicated machines. And so it's like I don't want to change over. These Multimatic machines are great, but I don't want to change processes mid stride. We're talking about efficiency here.
Yeah, you're running and gunning.
We're running and gunning all day, every day, and so it's like those kinds of things lead back to that efficiency you're talking about, where the cost of that machine and detach, it may cost you $3,000, but man, it saves you how many hours a year? Total that up over the lifespan of the machine. What's your time worth? Valuing your time and say, my hours are worth a lot to me, and to my family. I don't know if you've got, family and kids. I'm not sure.
Oh yeah, I got both of them.
Yeah, so it's like that. Me getting home at 5 or 6 matters. Is it 5 or is it 6? That hour matters to me. I want to get home at 5. I'd like to get home at 4:30.
Yeah,
but so yeah, if you can. So that efficiency is key in my mind. And then just learning and being a student of shop efficiency and just workflow from raw materials coming in. What's the fastest way to get them to the bandsaw, and the fastest way to get them from the bandsaw to the table being welded on?
Yeah. So you're a Miller guy.
I'm a Miller guy.
Okay,
Hardcore.
I don't want to bag on Miller. I've made a lot. Made a lot of money off Miller, but I will tell you that Lincoln's had that double tap trigger feature for since 2014 on their, or 2016 on their C300s. It's just really cool technology, and people are like, "When are you ever going to use that?" When I have to go from flat to vertical, when I have to go from vertical to overhead. Absolutely. I mean, so whether it's Miller or Lincoln, I'm just talking shit, but like. That matters, like if you're up underneath a truck or a trailer or something like that, and you're like, okay, well now I got to switch from this process or these settings to these settings because I want to put a quality weld in, because at the end of the day, all of your welds matter, regardless of where they are. So don't half-ass it and be like, well, if I just run, do this, do that, I
just do it on this setting.
Yeah, you double tap it and you just, okay, now I'm into overhead. You double tap again. Okay, I'm back into flat, because different thicknesses of material, different joint configurations, whether it's fillet, groove, where, limited access, you're going to want to be able to change that stuff. So like you were saying, efficiency is going to matter. And when you start off, you don't see it as a big deal. Like I caught a lot of stuff with a 6-inch cutoff wheel before I went out and bought a Portaband. And I was like, damn, where has this been all my life? And then same thing. Once I went out and upgraded from a Portaband to a chop saw, I was like, oh man, why didn't I do this sooner? So it's more efficient. You're spending less time on the project.
Yeah. And it matters especially more. And I'm feeling that these days. I turned 42 this summer. My 25-year-old self could work circles around me now, but my 42-year-old self gets twice as much done in a day, moving slower.
Yeah.
And how many times I have to crawl out from under this damn bulldozer matters to me now. Like I think about jobs in terms of calories expended. And I think Greg sometimes, the guy that works for me, Greg Bull, he's great. He's been with me 6 years or more. And, he's 31, strong, still young, and I think I always talk to him about, man, if we just do this, we're going to burn a lot less calories getting this job done. And I think he looks at me sometimes like, God, you old fart. But like, it matters.
He's going to appreciate it here in about 5-6 years.
He does. He does. I think, if I go home with enough energy to be a loving dad to my kids versus being just an exhausted, beat up 12-hour a day fabricator, that really matters as far as quality of life, So yeah, at 25, I laughed at the tools that made your job easier. I wanted to pick up the heaviest thing in the shop and march around and whatever, but man, it matters now. It matters. The less time I can spend with a grinder in my hand, the better, So, and good cutting and welding equipment minimize how much grinding you got to do. So,
yeah.
All the above. But yeah, the aging process being a welder fabricator is brutal.
I think between the ages of and correct me if I'm wrong, because you're right up there with me. You got 2 years senior to me. But
okay.
I think between the ages of 18 and 35, you've got a point to prove. You got an axe to grind. You're in an industry that demands you got to be the toughest. You got to be the first one on the job site. You got to be able to pick up the heaviest shit. You got to be able to make the less trips back and forth to the truck so you carry everything the first go around. And then it's right around age 40. It was my 40th birthday. It's you know what? There's an easier. You start developing all these more efficient processes to be able to do things to where it's not taxing on your body. And if we could just pass that information on to those 18 to 35 year olds and say, hey, look, there's an easier way to do this. Let me show you how to, do it. So you can, that way when you get home at, 40, 42, you can pick your kids up after work.
That's right.
You're not assed out by the time you get home.
And I preach that message every time I talk to the local college kids and high school kids. It's just oh my gosh, yeah, I had an axe to grind, and I was grinding it all day, every day, day and night, and it in some ways it was good because I learned a lot in a short amount of time doing a lot of hard work. And so there was benefits to glean from that. But at the same time, it makes you old really quick, puts a lot of gray in that beard. So it's there is a time that I think you wake up a little bit from some of your youthful ways. And I would say, yeah, 36, 37, I was hitting on that and started getting the aches and pains and the carpal tunnels and all that kind of stuff.
I got it in both my hands.
We got permanent nerve damage from the shoulders down. We got to do something a little different, And so I think the long, there's certainly a gateway in the welding and construction world. You got to put your time in. I think all of us beat that message to the kids. You got to put that time in. But man, I think there's, at the end of the day, where I'm at right now anyway, is you only got so much gas in the tank. You can burn it all early and you ain't gonna have much later. And I wish, part of me wishes I'd went a little easier early on in my career and not worked those 90, 100-hour weeks as much, and just paid more attention and learned the same amount in a 60-hour week or whatever, know, and just, I think I was going so hard and so tunnel visioned on the execution of the work that I could have done things a little different there. So, I think you got to pay your time. You're going to be the guy in the ditch. At some point you're going to be the guy doing the incredibly shitty task on a job, and that's okay. But you can't do it month after month, year after year, end on end, move past, keep pushing to move past and pay attention. And then hopefully you end up getting to do some of the better, easier, more challenging things later. Because you can't be the guy at the bottom of the ditch your entire career, or you don't want to be.
Right. And I think we, as young welders, you become a victim of circumstance. It wasn't until, I think I was 24, 25. I was working with this older guy, Don Watson. And when you're doing ironwork as, in the union, you're expected to take care of your journeyman. If you're an apprentice, you carry their tools, that was the guy that was attached to me. I was his helper. I was his hand. I'd go in there, fetch his tools, run his leads, do all this stuff. And I had that same axe to grind. It's okay, I'll go grab that 20-foot stick of material and I'll carry it over here all by myself because I want to show him that I'm worthy of, what he's trying to teach me, or, that I can keep up and this, that, and the other thing. And it's he's telling me, he's no. You see all these other people around here? Go over there and ask them for help. Or here's the other thing. I'm going to let you in on a little secret. We got this mysterious wonder nowadays called hydraulics.
Yeah.
So why don't you go across the street and get the forklift operator off his dead ass in the AC and have him pick up the material and bring it over here? Like, so it's just little things like that. I got to a point where I didn't feel like I had an axe to grind. I didn't have to prove a point, physically and just by brute strength and force, like I did in the military. I could actually start, using the muscle that gets used the least, my brain.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's like, hydraulics, chain falls, come alongs. Okay, that goes a lot longer than, swinging a BFH or like any of that stuff.
Exactly. And a lot of that comes down to company culture too. I mean, I've been a part of companies that, it's just an alpha pecking order and we're all here to beat the shit out of each other every day. And, but then I've been a part of, and the culture I try to generate here is, man, we're all in this, like we're truly in this together. I don't quite throw out we're a family mumbo jumbo because that's a bunch of corporate crap. But but like we are in this together and we're a team and like we got to get through this together. And I want that team mentality built in, and that when you see a company culture that's what to your the older guy saying, hey, don't pick that up. Let's get the forklift. Like that's the kind of stuff that's what we're doing. I'm not picking that up manually if we can have a tool that makes that safer and easier, and it's, I appreciate company culture that generates or fosters an environment of teamwork. I mean, I think there's a lot to be said versus just do it the hardest way possible for the cheapest. That's garbage culture,
Yeah.
And then do it as many hours as you possibly can.
Yeah.
It's like, until you die.
That's a badge of honor, like I'm working 7/12s and like I still, to this day kind of carry that around as a badge of honor because it was ingrained into me.
Yeah.
It's like, I worked, like 7/12s for like months on end. Yep. Okay, cool. Still, that's great and everything. But I mean, it comes a time where you start to understand the value of that time you're giving up away from, your family, your loved ones, your hobbies, all this other stuff.
And like to what you said earlier, victim of circumstance. If you're good at this stuff, like we could probably work around the clock. I could ask my guys to work around the clock. Like, no, though, no is my answer to that. But like, if you're good and a company recognizes you're good, they will work you, especially when the economy's booming and there's overtime to be had. They'll work you to death. And so like you've got to toe that line of, there's something to be said about being a company man, but there's also something to be said about I'm a human and like we're not made to run this way and then and responding that way and figure out how to toe that line of being the guy that'll put in the extra effort when it's needed, but also know when it's not needed and just let's go home. We don't have to do this tonight or in the morning at 4:00. It's just like some things can wait and they need to. So that's a hard thing to realize that's part of that maturing of 35, 36, getting the 15 years in the trades kind of thing where you're, maybe this isn't worth it, but you're going to do it. If you start and build a business, there's going to be a period where you are absolutely hustling, and that's just what you're signing up for. Yeah,
you touched on it a couple times, like the culture that you work with. And when I was younger, like I never thought culture was a big thing. Like I heard it during an interview process one time when I was at the school. They were talking. We used to do mock interviews, and one of the other instructors, he was from Lockheed Martin. He'd been there 25 years, retired, got into education, teaching the electronic board assembly class. So we used to do mock interviews with the students before they graduated, and he would talk about like the company culture. And I was like, man, that's a load of shit. Get in there, get the work done, work your 7/12s and like da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
I still had that iron worker mentality, but like as I got a little bit older, company culture matters. Like how does your, how does the group of people that you're working with, how do you guys work together? How do you form that bond, that teamwork? And now that I think about it, going back to the military, we had like a great culture within like our fire team or our squad or something like that. But once you get out in the civilian world, you kind of carry that I'm tough and I can get all this shit done on my own mentality. And a lot of companies, their culture feeds off that and they take advantage of that. And like, you've got to understand to learn and recognize those symptoms, those signs, what's going on around you. Does this company really care? Or like, if I drop dead on the job site, are they just going to like throw me over in the dumpster or kick some dirt on me and like put my resume or, you put an ad out for my job and have somebody else here the next day? Or, like, are they going to value me? Are they going to value the time and effort that I'm putting in? I mean, you think about it, like all the stuff you're doing to go out of your way to look tough on the job site. Does anybody really see that? Does anybody really care? Are you bringing anything to the table when you're doing that? No, they're just going to keep working you like that.
And or are you just a tool to be exploited?
Exactly. And then by 30, you're done. And you're like, fuck welding. I'm out of here. This is crap.
Yeah.
You kind of brought that onto yourself because you didn't recognize that culture that you're in. I really like what you do with your guys, because I'm sure everybody's seen that photo of the boss and the leader, like the leaders out front with their men or women or whatever, like doing the work. And then the boss is up top, swinging around the whip and, just making everybody do the work. Like you've got to get with a company or like a culture where, they kind of lead from the front.
Yes.
They don't push you to do the work. Like I've seen you out there. You're knee deep in shit with everybody else doing the same thing. And that's respectable. It's a different culture that most people don't get to see.
Yeah. And to touch on what you said, the two guys that worked for me, Greg was a Marine, Dax was 20-year Army vet. Love both those guys. But, the way, especially in a male-dominated trade, the way males bond is doing things together, right? And, man, me and Greg over the last 6 years, we have been in some absolute shit together, And it's like, he trusts me and I trust him, and we've established that relationship. And same with Dax. We've done some really hard, difficult, sketchy things, got through it. And I always make sure to let my guys know and that I appreciate it by rewarding them with it. Like I'm not going to just talk about it. Hey man, we kicked ass on this job and we got done 3 days early, and here's some extra cash for all the hard work. It's not all mine. This place is not all for me. It's for us, And so I take that very seriously, but that military style bonding of we bond by what we do together, and we'll become a team by doing hard things together.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I think, a real humble position of leadership comes from, is be knee deep in the cow crap with them. And you can form a team that can execute on a high level every single day, and that's even back on this common subject now, of just how do you retain good employees? How do you keep talent? How do you recruit talent? How do you get people to want to come work with you? A lot of that is your attitude and the public display that you of leadership that you do show. But treating people well, just ultimately making sure you take care of guys, like caring about them. They're just not numbers. We're not all numbers. We're all people trying to get through this crazy world, and just care for people and treat them good, and then build a team that is revolved around one thing, and that's getting the task done at the highest level you possibly can. I mean, that's my whole, the center of whatever leadership role I have in this tiny little fab shop in Knoxville is let's get through it together and do hard things, and let's be men about it, Yeah. And that's
it's like what you said at the beginning of the episode. You didn't say you quit the job, you quit the management. You quit the management. Most people don't quit jobs. Like I didn't quit my last job. I quit the management. I was tired of being micromanaged.
Yes.
You hired me to do something. Let me do that. You trusted me to run it and do things this way. Let me keep doing that. I don't need somebody breathing down my neck telling me, put the round peg in the round hole and the square peg in the square hole. Like I don't need somebody doing that. Like trust me and build that team.
Yeah. And the real motivated doers, I know these people too. The real motivated doers want you to give them the responsibility. They feed off of it.
Yeah.
I want to hand a guy a print, because here's where we all win. I want to hand a guy a print and say, go do your job.
Yeah.
And when it gets done, I'll QC it. Tack it all together and I'll QC it. I'm not going to tell you where to put the part. The blueprint does that. I'm not going to tell you where to weld it, because you've studied and trained this stuff. I'm not going to tell you what settings or what it's like, what to do. And so when you get guys with that level of talent, it's best to let them do what they do. They'll come up with their own mistakes. And if you're working with guys that really care, if you formed a team with guys that really care, I promise you don't have to beat them up. You don't have to be the guy that comes to the ball. Oh, you put the tube in the wrong place and you come out screaming and throwing stuff. Guys that care about what they do beat themselves up twice as hard as you ever could anyway. So just say, hey man, we put this tube in the wrong spot. Let's move it. Emotional control and regulation at that point, no matter how mad you are, doesn't matter. It's keeping that emotional control when you're working with customers and employees, and especially crappy clients. I almost lost my crap on a guy last year, and just learned a lot from that moment. And make a mental list of the kind of people you're never going to work for, and then quickly realize what kind of client this is, or what kind of person this is working for you, and realize whether they need to stay or whether they need to go. And that's part of that task of being the business owner. What you've got to learn is who stays, who goes. Who do you let go do their job? Who do you have to micromanage? Some guys are great employees, but they really do need that micromanagement, and they can never have that kind of autonomy, right? And that's okay. as long as they don't think they're the guy that could be autonomous, but they actually need micromanage. You know, there's a problem there, but you've got to be able to recognize that and navigate those channels, right? So, I mean, that's a huge task to being a good manager and a good leader, is realizing that employee A and employee B are two different guys, and how do you manage those two guys to maximize, output, fulfillment of their work, their pay, their home life, their personal life, all that kind of stuff. It's a huge juggling act that is a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, there's different like mentalities and learning styles and leadership traits. So I read a book a while back. I talked with Kevin Johnson and Max Ron on when we had
Kevin Johnson's a good friend of mine.
Oh, he's a good dude. We talked about Alpha Dog by Mark Breslin. And he goes through and he talks about different. You got to check that out. I think you'd really enjoy that book. It's very short read too, so it's great for welders. But he talks about like the different leadership styles, and you've got to be able to identify your people and lead them in the best way that they like to be led. So like you said, you have to have people that you micromanage. I mean, you don't have to have them, but I mean, you may have people that you have to micromanage. You need to know how to talk to that person. You may have somebody that's a type A mentality that they just, to get them to do anything, you got to yell at them. You got to flip a switch and like freak out and yell at them and cuss. And like everybody's got like a different way that they want to be talked to. Like me, if you yell at me, I'm going to shut down. I'm going to give you like the worst pot. You know what? I just got sick. I need to run over to Centricare. I'm out of here. Yeah. But like, if you're like, hey man, like you said, hey man, you put that tube in the wrong spot. I'm going to beat myself up on that probably for 3 days. Even after I fix it and it comes out right. You just got to know how to talk to people. But some people, they need that kick in the ass, and they're like, okay, and they'll get it done, and they're great workers. You just got to stay on them a little bit.
Yeah. I like hiring the guys that beat themselves up so bad you have to convince them they don't have to do that. Like, dude, it's okay. It's okay. We're just going to cut the tube out and move it. Yes, we went backwards for like 17 minutes to do that. But in the grand scheme, it's okay because, again, from the business side, sitting at this desk, I've tried to quote it at 40 hours, and we're going to try to get it done in 32. So that's 17 minutes. It's okay. We've got this buffer built in, right? And that's where doing good business comes in too. It's like mistakes are going to happen, right? I mean, it's inevitable. That's just it's inevitable. Obviously, we're all striving to minimize the mistakes, and they're going to happen. When they happen, you just fix it and go on, and that's just life, right? We all have problems, and how do you come to those problems and stand up to them, face it, fix it, and move on? And you just gotta. That's a skill. It's a skill. You got to hone that in. Yeah, you got to move on.
Now, how do you go about like trying to find and retain? Well, not necessarily retain, because you got to find them first. How do you necessarily go about finding good people to come work for you?
That's a great question, and there's probably guys more adept in answering that than me. And I have intentionally stayed pretty small and not. I've got that great balance of I have employees, but I don't have 20 employees, so I'm not pulling my hair out with all of this management stuff to do, and I still get to work. I've stumbled across Dax. I call him my little gift from Uncle Sam. He was a 20-year Army retiree, and I guess there's a program when you're retiring out of the military. You can get out a little bit early if you're going to get into the trades, and you can get an apprenticeship. And Uncle Sam during COVID sent me Dax for 3 months, paid all of his salary and all of his benefits, and all I had to do was promise to teach him things. I'm like, sign me up. You got the guy with the discipline of a 20-year military guy. I'll take that risk all day long. And it turns out me and Dax have actually become really good friends, and I love working with the dude. Like, I absolutely love it. And so he works for me part-time, teaches at the local college as a welding tech, and graduated their program. So he was just this gift that fell from the sky. So, I mean, I didn't even have to go looking for him. Greg was the same. We were in at the local community college, and I just recognized he was asking good questions. I was like, man, this guy's paying attention. He's asking the right questions. He doesn't know the answers, but he's asking the right questions. Some kids are like, why is the puddle green? So it doesn't matter why it's green. It's just let's focus on the puddle, right? Well, Greg was asking the right questions. So I was just listening to who's paying attention, and started there, and it turned into a great thing that's lasted years. And then I've hired some folks just off of the internet too. You got I probably get 4 or 5 guys a week that hit me up saying, and this is a great thing, I never have a shortage of people that I could talk to about employment. 4 or 5 guys a week. Hey, I'm thinking about relocating to Knoxville. Like, are you hiring? Can I come in and take a weld test? That kind of stuff. And I never am, and I'm never hiring, but there's never a shortage of guys to at least sit down. I could have 20 guys really quickly. And that's just a blessing from having just a moderate amount of followers on Instagram, then people seeing your work that would say, wow, y'all are doing some neat stuff. I'd love to come work for you. So that's kind of a benefit of being plugged into the social world, is just having that exposure of the kind of stuff you do and maybe recruiting talent when the time comes. There'll be a time. And I've also talked about this on some other podcast stuff too. I've got a pretty fail-safe test of whether, kind of weeding you out real quickly, whether I should even invest your time in a weld test. Everybody asks, hey, can I come in and take your weld test? I don't have a weld test. I got a written test. Let's sit down. Here's your pen. Show me what you know, because what you know there. And I was talking with Kevin when I did his Welding Business Owners podcast, I don't know, maybe a year ago. And that is 5 minutes. And if you're not done in 5 minutes, you're definitely not my guy. And if you have questions during this test, you're definitely not my guy. And then we can move on to what's going to be a weld test, which is my time, my electricity, my materials, and then watching you execute it. Like my time's too valuable for that kind of stuff right off the bat. I want to weed you out quick, Mm-hmm. So I'm pretty particular when it comes to that kind of stuff. But you're also, when you have a 3-man, when you have a 3-man operation, it very much matters who, and my wife helps as well. It very much matters who's on your team.
Yeah.
When I've worked at big companies, and when you have 25 welders, 7 of them can be jacklegs, and that's okay. But the other ones are, outputting and all that kind of stuff. It really, really matters the smaller that team gets, in my mind, who's on that team. And so I know that I have to be very particular about who I let on that team. And when you let the wrong person on the team, you got to realize that quickly and make changes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like you said earlier, it's all about efficiency. So if you're going to be a member of that team, like, we can't be like limping you along. You've got to be another spoke in that wheel. Like, you've got to do your fair share. And I think having a written test is it's an awesome thing to do. And like I was explaining to one of the job placement reps over there, one of the schools the other day I was testing, a lot of employers, like, they're not even looking at the resume until you pass the weld test. However, we had, like, I worked with one company, you don't even get to take the weld test. They're not even going to look at your resume until you pass a couple of written tests. One of them is a tape measure test. The other one is a general knowledge test. The other one is basic structural shapes. Do you know the difference between I-beam, pipe, tube, square tube, channel?
Yes.
Like, can you lay this stuff out? Like, how do you determine what size an I-beam is? Like that, if you don't pass the tape measure test and that, you're not getting onto the general knowledge test or the weld symbols test. And like the secretary up front can weed you out, just by grading your paper before you ever get your resume looked at, in front of HR, or before you ever go out and do your weld test. Exactly.
Yeah. Show me you have the aptitude and the attitude before we come in and actually start getting to work, and doing the thing. Because I feel like, everybody needs shaped and molded into a new system, right? I mean, anybody you hire, any company you go to, if I went and got on with some company, I would need molded into their system, right? And I would need taught things the way they do them, that kind of stuff. And so you've got to figure out, I think, in that element, who has that attitude and aptitude to perform the work that you need them to excel at. But then you're going to have to invest in them once they're on board and teach and show the way. It's like that can come. So you've just got to show me, do you have the right beginning stages, and I'll try to take you to the finished product. Because I think investing in guys is huge. Just if you've got good people that have good attitudes and the right kind of lens, you got to invest in those folks, man. You got to get them the tools they need. You got to get them the training they need. You got to stop and talk about this process for an hour, and not consider it a waste of time, because your employee's now growing. It's like it's a small thing because we're a small shop, but that's something I really try to do, is just make sure we stop when we need to stop and talk about the things we need to talk about. It's super important, where I think that can get brushed over in a larger corporate environment, really quickly. I think that's all important stuff.
Oh yeah, it's great stuff. And like, attitude seems to be like the biggest thing. When you're going into work for a company, like, what type of attitude do you have? Are you wanting to get it done? Or are you wanting to just kind of luff through? Are you just looking for a paycheck? You want to come in here, clock in, and like skate for 40 hours and then, clock out on Friday. No, like you got to be a part of the team.
Yes. Yeah. And the things that I don't allow being said here are, can't see it from my house, or good enough.
Yeah. Good enough for government work.
Good enough for government work, or, any of that kind of mentality has no place to me and anybody I want to deal with too. I don't want to work for customers that have that mentality. So I will weed out customers that have a good enough mentality. I want to get done with something, try to do our best, and then go, next time we're going to do this better because we do this here. Be your own best critic. Don't beat yourself up, but be critical of the way you did something. And next time, sharpen that axe a little bit more, and that's the kind of guys you want to surround yourself with. And you surround yourself with that guys, and then you start networking with those kind of guys, and your level. I mean, I think, to go back to Instagram, networking with the guys that I have networked with, and really become close friends with, are a really small group of incredible fabricators and problem solvers and machinists. And these guys are so smart, and they have great personalities, and they're good friends too. But I think we all bring each other up in our outputs, and even the processes we get into and the repairs we get into, and having this network of guys all over the country that you can hit up for advice and stuff. You can start edging out on that comfort zone a little bit, because I've got, my buddy Aaron Jenkins up in Alaska. I say, man, I'm not quite sure what I'm doing here, but I know I can call Aaron and he'll give me 7 minutes of his time to help lead me through this. And I've got enough background information and wisdom to put his 7 minutes of forward-thinking knowledge with my wisdom experience, and then I can get the job done. And that kind of stuff, having that community and that network is so huge. And so that's just another thing that I think, Instagram and just who you swim in the waters with really matters. Do your friends want to lift you up? Do they want to see you do good? And do they clap when you're kicking ass on something? Those are the kind of guys I want to be with, because I'm sure rooting my guys on. I mean, I'm the guys here at the shop and my friends abroad. I mean, we're just that I want to see everybody win.
All right, we're going to go ahead and take a quick commercial break. This segment of the Arc Junkies podcast is brought to you by Strong Hand Tools. Upgrade your workshop with Strong Hand Tools. Their innovative and time-saving clamps, magnets, and fixtures are designed for maximum efficiency. Say goodbye to makeshift solutions and say hello to precision and speed. Strong Hand Tools is the go-to source for reliable, durable, and versatile welding accessories. Don't miss out on their exclusive promotions to save 5, 15, and 20% off select Strong Hand Tools and accessories. Visit stronghandtools.com/promo now and transfer your workspace with Strong Hand Tools. We're also brought to you by Everlast Welders. Pre-orders for the all-new Typhoon hit at the end of this month, and you want to secure your spot now. The new Typhoon is a cutting-edge TIG welding machine that's about to revolutionize your TIG welding experience. With its powerful 70% duty cycle at max output and unparalleled precision, the 230 excels in a wide range of applications from mild steel, stainless steel, aluminum, and beyond. Designed for professional and DIY users alike, the Typhoon 230 features a user-friendly interface, dual-voltage flexibility, and rugged construction for unparalleled reliability and performance. So hop on over to everlastwelders.com and get on that pre-order list today, and don't forget to use Arc Junkies in the comment section at checkout when you buy any machine that comes with a stock foot pedal, and get that free Nova foot pedal and TIG torch upgrade. Everlast Welders. Weld mean, weld green. Now let's get back into the show. Yeah, I mean, networking is a huge aspect, and one of the things people are, I've said it a million, I probably said it every episode. I got a buddy, Ryan Eubank, and I kid you not, he told me, if you're the smartest person in the room, you need to find another room.
Right.
And it's all in the people that you hang out with. Are those people bringing you up, or are they holding you back? And that's the thing, is you'll lose a lot of friends when you start becoming successful, because they're not able to hold you back anymore. You start hanging out with different people because they're bringing you up. They're putting out a hand, and they're helping you up to the next level. And I think that makes all the difference in this industry. Well, probably with many different industries, but welding, more especially. Having somebody that you can call, you can make that call and say, "Hey, look, I think I got into a situation I can't get myself out of. What do I do here?" And they're like, "Boom, here you go. I ran into that. Here's exactly what you do. I've been there, done that. Here's exactly what you do. Here's how you fix it. Here's how you handle that. Oh, done. Boom. Okay, on to the next one." But I mean, those are the people you have to surround yourself with.
Yes, absolutely. Have you read? Do you know Cal Newport? His book, and it's a Chevy Chase line. So good they can't ignore you.
Oh yeah.
That's the title of the book. You need to read that one. But it's a famous Chevy Chase line. Somebody asked Chevy Chase, he was killing stand up and his career was exploding, and somebody was getting into the business and said, what's your advice? I'm a brand new comedian. I want to be where you're at, and Chevy Chase's response, and at least told through this book and this story, was just be so good they can't ignore you. And it's like, hone your craft, hone the business side, hone the craft, get really good at what you do, and just ignore the peripheral. There's a lot of stuff out here that you don't need to be paying attention to. You need to be tunnel vision on what you're trying to do and where you're trying to take your career goals, your skill sets, your mentality, all that kind of stuff. And so I just love Chevy Chase's response. It sounds very pretentious, at first. And that's what it struck me as at first. And I started reading that book going, man, I just think this is going to be, filled with a bunch of stuff that I'm not interested in. But the more I read that book, there are a million one-liners in that book that are just pure gold as far as career development, and especially even for the welding industry. But his whole thing was, if you focus so hard on being so good at what you do, forget passion. And this is the root of the book, really. He's calling out saying, be passionate about what you do, is like, it's just this frou-frou idea. No, just get really damn good at what you do, and then you'll find fulfillment in it. But if you're not good at anything, if you're not good at tackling hard things and solving complicated problems, you'll never be fulfilled in any of this. And just the whole follow your passion thing's a big myth, is his whole thing. So anyway, I just want to book drop that, because that book was really cool to read through and think about as my career was shifting and leadership roles were higher staked and that kind of stuff. It kind of struck me as that's what I've always wanted to do, is just get as good as I can, that your customers and the clients, and I don't care about the Instagram stuff. It's my customers here locally. I need them to believe that we are the people to solve their problems, and it's be so good that they say, we have a level 1 problem that we need solved. Who do we call? You got to call Petty and those guys. And that's what I want. That's what I want. Not out of ego or pride, but that's what fulfills me, and that's what drives me forward. So I would recommend that book to anybody looking to sharpen their, kind of professional lens on what they're doing with themselves. But
I like what you said about, like being able to select your clients. If this client, they seem that close enough is good enough. Okay. I'm going to note that. I'm going to put that in my notes. Like, maybe that's a company that I don't want to do business with, because you want that challenge. You want when you roll up with your guys and you start offloading tools and stuff, you want to be their problem solver, and they know that you're coming there to be the problem solver. Like, you're going to go in there and you're going to get stuff done, and it's going to be A-rated, and it's going to be done right the first time. It's not, looks good from my house. Like that mentality. I hate that. I mean, like, we say it on a job site, like, all the time as a joke, but like, I take a lot of pride in the work that I do. And I want my customers to see that, so that they're going to call me up. Like, I don't want to be like, oh yeah, he can get it done. We'll call him back up, because the last one he did still holding. Like, I don't want that. Right. I want the client that calls me up and be like, you know what, we've got a problem. This is the number we're calling. This is our solution. You're like the first call in the Rolodex.
And it seems to me, this is a broad stroke here, but it seems to me the good enough mentality, or we want a level 7 product or whatever, also comes with we want it done as cheap as possible. Yep. And I am not out to make a gazillion dollars, but I can't work with people who want it done as cheap as possible. I tell people all the time, sometimes within a minute of being on the phone with a new client, we will never be the cheapest guy in this town. We can't be. And so I see those two things coming together in clients and say, no, what I want is people to seek us out to do the work, and they want our name attached to it, because when they give you that PO and they give you a deadline, I want them to already know it's going to be there by that time, and it's going to be in the quality and shape and form and accuracy that we desire. And then at that point, those customers will pay you well. So like the corner cutting customers will also expect you to always be a little cheaper. And then you can be 25 years into your career. You've never made any money. You've never made any forward progress with the business. And you've just become a corner cutter for people. And you just hate to see that good talent go to waste. If you have the ability to operate at a higher level, go find the higher level.
Yeah.
Like,
don't step down and work for those guys that closest up is good enough.
Don't settle. But also know where you're at. If this is just what you want and you're fine and kosher and you want 40 hours and skate and you can make pretty MIG welds all day, then great. That's great. We're talking about two different things and two different people types, right?
Yeah.
I'm talking about the more driven, ambitious, higher functioning, kind of level of executioners,
Yeah. And a lot of those people that want a Cadillac for a Ford Pinto price, they're also like, those are the ones that are like net 90, net 180.
Run.
And you're
run.
like, yeah, avoid that.
Yeah, that's right. Run. And you'll your good customers will pay you quickly.
And they pay you well because they understand the value of what you're coming up, what you're showing up to do. They understand the value. Like it's right. Like you said earlier, it's value added. Like when I call up, Drew and his guys, like they're going to get it done. They're going to get it done right. And they're going to get it done now.
Yep.
And they're not going to be in there cutting corners. It's going to, the inspector's going to come in, they're going to buy off on it, and then we're on to the next stage. So they're saving us time and money because they're getting a job done right the first time.
Yes. Yeah. And that's what you want to be known for. You don't want to be known as the cheapest guy in town.
No,
that's a race to the bottom, and that's a loser's game. You don't want to be the guy installing the cheapest handrails. People understand that if you're the cheapest guy, or they should understand, most consumers understand, if you're the cheapest guy, you're making the shittiest product. Yeah. Like that's just how the economics work. Simple economics. If I'm gonna put more time into my product to make it better, I have to charge more, right? And so people that know the game and are operating at that level, that's what they seek. So like strive for that. Even if it takes you years to get there, that's okay. Just keep climbing that client base, and don't be scared to I love firing clients. Like people are scared to death to lose jobs, I love firing clients. When I realize it's time to let one go, that's just stress off my back, man. It's like, okay, we can move on, and it opens doors to other places. And so I think that's just something that can be undernoted, is how fast you need to fire people.
You're
something I'm still learning.
Yeah, you're getting rid of problems at that point.
Yeah, you're getting rid of problems and headaches, and the people that want you to do stuff on the cheap or do something on the quick and then not pay you for 60 days. And it's like, if you want me fast, pay me fast. Yep. I mean, that's just kind of how that needs to work. And that's just a sign of respect. It's not about getting the money in my account as fast as possible. It's a sign of respect. I mean, that's, in my mind, that's what it is.
Yeah, you did the work, pay the man.
You did the work, and you came like, now. Don't give me the 90-day stuff. Yeah. Don't do that to me, But.
No, it's great to, and I've had to have that conversation with clients. It's like, well, you're just too expensive. No, I'm not too expensive. And this is the way, like I've explained to other people, that like, this is how you need to present it to your client. And, I mean, tell me how you do it, but I'll tell them, like, I'm not too expensive. I'm just out of your current budget.
Yes.
I'm sure that there's somebody else out there that'll do the work to the level of, what you're expecting that can be within your budget. But that's not me. I can refer you to some people, but I can't do that type of work to that expectation for what's in your budget.
Yes.
And then you leave the ball in their court. There's no hard feelings. There's no heartburn. You're not too expensive. They're like, yeah, right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I've got to work within my budget.
Yeah, and I think that's the way I approach it sometimes, is say, I think I know some guys that could get it done sooner and maybe cheaper than I can. And I've networked around with a lot of local guys, welders, and there's just an economy of scale and different projects and clients. And some guys love to have the work because they're just starting out that I can't do anymore and I can't get to. And so it's great to have those and be able to direct customers to somebody who will solve their problems, because at the end of the day, we're in the service industry, right? I mean, we're still, I don't want to just hang up on people. I want to help them. If 60 seconds of my time can help get them to where they need to go and get their problem solved, awesome. I'll give you 60 seconds all day long to refer you to somebody and explain why we can't serve you in this way or whatever, So yeah, that's exactly my approach, because I never want to sound, you don't want to sound.
You don't want to be pretentious about it.
Yeah,
I don't have time for you.
Crap. Like, no, that's not the right attitude. I think, the disposition is, hey, I think this guy might be able to help you, and offer another solution. Now, I can't spend 30 minutes with you, explaining why I can, but I can give you the brief and the quick, and try to help you find somebody that can help you. We get, oh my gosh, my favorite, 3 times a week, y'all fix cracked rims. It's just somebody, it's like riding around on 20s that hit a pothole or something. It's just like, no, but it's just like, I'll direct you out to somebody that's doing TIG work on the weekends at their house. It's just like, go call this guy and maybe he can hit you up for $75 cash or something. I can't do that.
Yeah, that's a dangerous realm to play in.
No, and it's just nothing.
If you're incorporated.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, I think our take on that's the same. So
yeah, you got to understand risk too when you're going on, like, bidding these different jobs and everything. It's like,
yeah,
can we actually handle that? Like, if I do this work and it comes down to, like, are we really qualified to do this work? because there's a lot of people that get into it, like they see the dollar sign that's attached to that quote or that bid, and they're like, man, like I can do that with having absolutely zero experience in that realm and jump on it. And like you could get in trouble. You can get in hot water really quick with that.
You can. And I think that the thing to touch on here is I sent a thing out on Instagram the other day, or a couple hours ago, actually. I mean, saying, hey, what was some of the things you want to, I'm meeting with Jason with Arc Junkies. What would you guys want to hear about? And a lot of guys are, how do you approach bumping outside your comfort zone? And the confidence, you need to show up with confidence, and people are like, your customers are a lot like horses. Like they can smell your fear. Like if you show up, well, I don't know, like, man, you may not be the guy, you know, for this. You also don't want to show up on the flip side with like way too much ego and like, get out of the way, I got this, you don't want to be that guy either. But you develop that confidence with experience and time, and there's no other way around it. And I'll share this story the other day. I was proud of us. Out of town company doing some mining work. We got a bunch of zinc here in East Tennessee, and they were in some real hot water over putting in some new pumps in the bottom of the mines. Our mines all flood because groundwater comes in. We got limestone base here, and they pump out, oh man, hundreds of gallons a minute to keep the mines from flooding. And as soon as the pumps go off, it's only a matter of hours before the mines start to flood and they start to lose equipment. So they were in real hot water. They had an underqualified guy. It wasn't his fault. We got down there and saw some horrendous pipe work. I mean, really, really horrible. And it was just a guy doing what he was told to do. And finally, the project engineer stopped him and said, hey, we got to halt this. Y'all got to find somebody to do the work. Well, this out-of-town engineering firm calls the local welding supplier here, and they give him our number, which I was really thankful for. Like they called and said, hey, we got this big time problem. Who's the guys to call, And so it's Thursday afternoon. We get a set of blueprints, and we've got to be there Saturday morning. They ask if we can be there Saturday morning, 2 days later, all loaded up on site to go 1,400 feet underground to work 2 days through the weekend. Right.
Damn.
We've got the gear and we've got the experience, and there's always the jitters, but like, what are we even going to see when we get down there? And you get down there and you just get to work, and you kind of bank on that experience. And then they had more work 2 months later that we had to do that we just did a couple weeks ago, it was awesome. I mean, I loved it. And I could sense how nervous the project engineer was when he came out to talk to us. And he asked us, he said, could you please not take a lunch break today? And this is the project engineer guy. I was like, oh, no worry, man. We're used to running on the go. And he was still trying to figure out if we were the guys. And I knew the things to say to him to calm him down. Hey, man, this is just another day. We're here. We can make this problem go away. And we had 10 hours to put an offset in a 14-inch, half-inch wall pump output that carries all the water out of the mines. And the pumps can only be shut off for 10 hours. We got 10 hours to do this. We're 50 feet down the shaft. We're standing on walk boards 1,400 feet below the ground below us, just strapped off, and we're making this offset connection with a couple of 14-inch flanges. And I don't know if you saw that post. You should go back and look. It was pretty awesome. And I was just we got done in 5 hours. And the guys, like, he came out and he said, hey, we need to look into setting you guys up as a vendor for the mines, And that was just a real, like, just one of those moments where we came in, we had all the stuff. We had our just all the tooling and the wisdom to execute, crane this, 600-800 pound offset down the thing, have everything checked. We had to make the cuts and remove the pipe and then crane it out, weld, blow a hole, hook clevises, remove the pipe, and then drop the offset, get the flanges hooked up, and then make watertight welds, right? Mm-hmm. And the pumps could only be down for 10 hours, and they were nervous about it. We got it done in 5, and everybody's like, hey, that's great, And so just that alone is the kind of stuff that drives me to say, but it took a long time to reach that level of confidence that we could show up and say, like, we believe in our equipment. We believe in the experience we have. I believe in the guys that I'm working with to keep me safe. And to have my back and I've got their back, and we can execute this for you in a timely fashion. And so, like, that's the kind of stuff, man, that I just think, don't rush it, bump your comfort zone slow, but always be looking, always get yourself a little uncomfortable. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. Stretch yourself out, but have some realistic boundaries of, I'm a one-man shop, and I just bid 58 apartment complexes. The structural steel, like, what are you doing? Like, you can't execute this work. Know what those limits are.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's just something I wanted to touch on for somebody that asked about how you bump outside that comfort zone. Is just time and paying attention, and then develop that confidence where you don't lose. I mean, you know how fast shit hits the fan. I mean, you can be on a job site and things go awry really quickly. And when you're 100 feet up, tied off on the side of a building, or you're below ground, like things can get sideways in Western real quick. And you've got to be able to regulate your emotions and fight your way out of that with common sense and practicality. Your emotions are great liars when you're stressed out. So I just think learning how to stay cool and calm is a big deal.
Yeah. But you should have got, as soon as you got back topside, you should have asked the project engineer, be like, hey, is it cool if we take lunch now?
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, they expect you to be down there for 10 years or 10 hours, but that comes along with the experience. You're not biting off more than you can chew. You're staying within your scope of work. You bump it up, like you said, a little bit at a time, because you don't want to get too far out of that comfort zone to where you show up and it's obvious that you're not capable of doing this job.
Yes. Yeah.
But I mean, investing in the right tools, investing in the right gear, not only to get the job done, but to keep you and your workers safe.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of people, they don't do that enough. Like I got a buddy, Zach, he's in heavy equipment and stuff, and he's all the time beating the drum about proper shoring. They just had a worker that just died. Yes. I think it was up in New York. And, the guy's 30 foot down. Like, somebody was up there taking a picture of him seconds before the dirt caved in. I mean, like, not even,
I saw that.
Not even over exaggerating. So you've seen it. So it was like a 2 foot wide trench, probably 30 foot down, and the guy's kind of looking up, smiling. You can't.
And moments later, he's dead.
Moments later, he's gone. When all they had to do was excavate that hole, to a safer area and drop in some trenching or, some shoring. Like, all this stuff can be avoidable.
Yes.
Having a plan of attack, having an emergency rescue plan before you go in there, making sure the ladders are set up, making sure everything works and functions properly, investing in that high quality gear, not only to get the job done right, but to get it done safe.
Yeah. And also knowing all of that, plus knowing that no matter how safe you attempt to be, you can go through every single safety, something can still happen.
Yeah.
So being my guard is even higher than it ever has been. I've always been a safety Nazi. I joke about safety third, but I'm really all about some safety.
I'm a safety dork.
Yeah, I'm a safety dork. And the things seem to happen when recently anyway, when you're doing something not dangerous. And we were, me and a buddy of mine, Chris, he's a local guy, really good welder, great guy, good attitude, work ethic. And we were just carrying something into a house on flat ground, and his foot slipped off the sidewalk. He fell backwards. The piece of steel came down and cut his pinky off on the job site we were on. And I was like, whoa, so we jump in the truck and we're hauling. We weren't doing anything that I haven't done a million times. You weren't dangling from the side of a roller coaster or on scaffolding out, dangling off the side of a cliff or something actually dangerous. We were just two men walking with something modestly heavy. And now he doesn't have a pinky. So it's like, no matter what you do, no matter how many safety protocols you follow, things can still happen. You just always got to be aware.
Real quick.
Things can go south, and you just got to be aware of what can happen. So I'm even more aware since then. I feel so horrible for Chris being pinkyless and watching him get it amputated. But you just always got to be diligent and try to keep your guys safe for sure.
Yeah, that's one thing I told all the students. Like, complacency kills. Like, even though you've done this 100 times, it'll be that 101st time that gets you. Or it may not be that. You might be on a job site and you know that your crew's safe, but that crew next to you might not be.
Yep.
I mean, they're over there and like, this is a hill that I will die on, cutting with a freaking cutoff wheel without a guard on it. Why?
Yep.
I mean, like I told you, I'm a safety dork. Like, it's a big thing because, like, I've seen people get injured due to that.
Yes.
Just for the simple fact that, I didn't want to put a guard on because, the guard gets in the way. Okay, maybe you just need a different tool. So investing in proper tooling to get stuff done. Yeah, and
recognize that cutoff wheel wants to hurt you every time you pick up the grinder. Like,
every time you hit that switch.
That's its goal. So, like,
it wants to come apart.
It wants to hurt you, and so, like, just even knowing that, but
you put anything up under enough centrifugal force, it wants to come apart.
Yeah. But like you said, touching on too is anymore. I think we've developed such a team. I trust my guys. I watch them work safe. We can all slip up and forget our safety glasses or whatever, but you're right. It's when you're on a job site with 5 other trades, you better be watching out for everybody else, because it's the other people that will hurt you. They may be watching out for their own, but they'll accidentally do something to hurt you. And that's you really got to keep your eyes open on construction sites, especially.
I told my students, I was like, it doesn't matter how safe you are. 9 times out of 10, somebody else is going to be the one that hurts you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's absolutely. Just, it's the luck of the draw. So, I mean, you got to be, what is it, like every 20 seconds, you're supposed to be checking your surroundings. Like OSHA came down with some mandate or some training or whatever. Like every 20 seconds, you need to reevaluate where you're standing, what's going on in your area. You know, I've seen people, you know, on a job site, and all of a sudden the crane operator and the other vendor, they're out there swinging live loads over everybody's head. That's not cool.
Yeah,
like I'll shut the job down. Like I will get my guys out of there and be like, we'll come back when you guys are done lifting stuff over people's heads.
Yeah.
Because I've seen rigging fail because somebody didn't do their due diligence. They're using the improper rigging. You know, they're not using the right stuff, or, you know, they didn't do an inspection on it beforehand. You know, and there's cuts and holes and all kinds of stuff in it, and, you know, things happen. And it's because everybody gets in a big damn hurry to get the work done, you know, because they're, you know, over budget and, you know, they're extended out on time frame. They got to get this stuff done because now they're losing money. So they start cutting corners, and safety is the first thing to go.
Yeah. And especially in the world you came from with structural, where there's hardly a piece that you touch that you can even pick up. You know, it's like everything gets lifted or hoisted with some kind of machine. And then you need to know, if you don't understand hydraulics, you don't need to be disassembling hydraulic components.
Exactly.
You know, if you don't know, you've got to know where you fall and what your skill sets are, because you can get real hurt with any of the things that make our lives easier. It can also hurt you, you know? So it's, we got to be real careful, especially with hydraulics, but seen a lot of guys get hurt.
Yeah. Now, so what's that? Was it, so that job you said you were 1,400 feet down? Is that the one we were chatting about a while back? You guys were going down into some like cavern or something. There's like a big square area, and you had to lower everything down like 1,400 feet below finished grade or whatever.
Yeah. Well, that job, we went down 1,400 or 1,100 to the pump room and did a bunch of pipe work. And we dropped, I've got an 800 duo, and we dropped it down there and fed off both ways. And me and Greg were both welding for a couple of days there. We may have been chatting about a job I've talked about before, where we, in the same mines, we would take apart machinery and drop each piece, you know, engine and components.
That might have been, yeah, that was
frameworks, and then put it all back together underground and re-weld the whole dump truck back together, and, you know, put every component and wiring harness and stuff again. That may have been what we were chatting about, but even doing that kind of stuff, that was on a company's dime, you know, just to even bring that conversation full circle. We did that on a company's dime, and probably wasted a lot of time and efficiency because we had employee mindsets. But you even learn how to do complicated things when you work for an employer that does complicated projects. You can learn how to build that confidence on somebody else's dime making mistakes, you know. So even that kind of stuff, we had confidence to go execute in my name with a shirt that had my company name on it, because I had been there before with somebody else's name on my shirt, you know. And so like that's where some of that confidence gets built.
Because you've done the work before on somebody else's dime.
Yeah, you've done the work with somebody, and so you build confidence on somebody else's dime too. And then you have the confidence to go do it with your name on your shirt one day, if that's your goal. And then, I mean, I've said this a million times to a lot of young folks, that you really need to evaluate whether this is for you. There's just only so many personality types and work ethics that running a small business is suitable for, and it ain't for everybody. But yet the entrepreneurial spirit in a welding school is really high. You know, 9 out of 10 kids want to rig up and go, I'm going to go do my own thing. It's just like, that's awesome. Maybe it's motivated. Maybe you're overly inspired by people you see that make this look easy, because it's not, you know. But I always like to speak a little bit of realism into that and say, man, take a hard evaluation into whether this is for you or not.
Well, it's best to give them a wake up call, and it's like, hey, dude, like, I don't want to put out your flame or anything. You know, keep that mentality, keep that mindset, but get the experience first. You know, go out there and get on some jobs and like learn how the bidding process works. I mean, that's the biggest thing. Like, if you're going to open up your own business, like, learn the bidding process first. Figure out, you know, the cost of doing business. I mean, that's the biggest thing. Like, how did you figure out how to set your rates?
We're at the point, we've got an hourly rate, you know, to go do field work or whatever, but that's so little of our day to day. Most of the stuff we do is quoted jobs, or it doesn't matter what it costs, just do it and send us a bill, which is my favorite way to work.
Oh yeah.
Because treat, you know, for obvious reasons. I ask a lot of questions on job sites. So when I am, and always have, I just put on a curious tone, go talk to project manager, say, what it cost to pour all that concrete over there, you know. Or you're on a job site where there's a bunch of larger structural steel. I'll go to the super, and we'll be out there doing miscellaneous welding or whatever, and say, you know, what it cost to set all this steel? What was the package, you know? And they'll tell you these things. And especially when you're talking to people who don't feel you're in competition with them. So it's really just asking the right questions and listening, and then paying attention to what other guys around you are charging, and then having a real fair and honest lens of where's your skill and talent meet the economy. And then your customers will also tell you at some point you'll lose customers because you're charging too much. And sometimes that's a thing. We're heading in the right direction. Yeah. That could be a great thing. But if you price yourself here and you're not getting any work, it also needs to tell you a little something about where you think you should be and what you can charge and what you actually can charge. So, I mean, I think asking a lot of questions and really just keeping your ear to the ground. I mean, even just hanging out at local welding shops, or your local welding supplier, you'll just hear a salesman who talks to every guy in town say, "Oh, these guys over here are charging, you're only charging that. These guys are charging this an hour," I just pick up on, say, "Oh, okay, well, maybe that's where the market is," and then start testing with those things. And, we've upped our rates a lot over the years from where we started, to where we are now. And, every time we've done that, it's been a successful thing. It's never been a kick in the teeth. It's you can also thrust yourself up into higher echelon of customers as well. Because again, there are some people that don't want you to give them a cheap number. I have customers I've talked to about jobs that I've overquoted. I mean, I've overquoted things and missed jobs, and then be talking to them and them say, "We didn't go with this guy because his numbers were really low." And like, I know these people who have been managing companies for years and managing the incoming and outgoing of fabrications and weldments and all that kind of stuff, they know when a quote's 60% lower than somebody else that there's something wrong. They know
they missed something.
They missed something, or they didn't pay enough, or they don't know enough about how to quote, or know enough about how much this stuff costs to actually do. Because we spend tens of thousands of dollars a month. So it's like, there's just. So yeah, I just think paying attention and keeping an ear to the ground quietly and knowing who to ask questions to is a great way to figure out where you are in your market. And that would change if I moved to some small town in the middle of Nebraska somewhere where there's no industry. I'm just throwing things out. I don't know if there's a lot of industry in Nebraska, but all of a sudden I could be worth dramatically less, but you could also thrust yourself with the same skill sets and talents into some other pool and be worth drastically more. So you've got to figure out your own local economy. That's kind of my thing, is you've got to get to know who's operating in your pool, who are the kind of people you want to work for, and then go beat on their doors, man. I mean, like, let your face be known, get in front of them, slip them business cards, direct people to your website, show them, my Insta is connected to my website. And so every time I post on Instagram, it's an auto update on my website. So anybody that finds us through the website has an auto update of all the projects that we've been working on and get to see what we do. Yeah. So I don't even have to worry about my website getting updated. It's always getting updated, know? And through my social channels, which is just fun for me to post things and chat about stuff with people. So, but yeah, so just learning that local economy and trying to figure out a way to get your name and reputation out there, is a big deal. But that's how we learn to set our rates. But you got to know there's a number down there at the bottom that you'll never make any money. And we all know where that line is if you know your cost, which is the most important way to start out. And what are you spending to run your business? Tally the numbers, figure out what you've got to make every single day just to survive before you even make money. You better know that number. You better know, because it costs me a certain amount every single hour, whether I'm here or not, to own this shop, these tools, and this business with this insurance. It's like there's a base rate of what we got to make. So it's like, and it's a lot higher than people think it is. It's very high. So
it's cost of doing business.
Cost of doing business. That's it.
Yeah, I did a video on weld.com probably, it's been a while, probably 2-3 years ago. You've got to figure out, like, what is that minimum hourly rate that I need to do? You got to tally up. What's it cost to, lease my shop? What's my insurance cost? What's my overhead? What's my workers' comp? What's the phone bill? Internet? Like, everything you have in your shop that you have to pay out a monthly fee, what does it cost to do business? And you divide that by 160. Let's just say we're only working 40 hours 4 months out of the week, or 4 weeks out of the month.
Yeah.
So what is that hourly rate? Okay, at a bare minimum, X amount of dollars is what I have to make to keep the lights on in this place, to keep my, from getting evicted. Like, that's a good place to start right there. And then you just, start moving up from there.
Yeah. And if there's an economy to support welding in your community, you'll be able to charge that plus what you need to survive. It's there. So like, don't be afraid of that. Don't let that number scare you. And then you got to pad that number to actually make something and then be able to grow, because you also have to factor in your margins for business growth. And what I think a lot of guys miss is tool replacement. You know, like these engine drives, I've got, I don't know, 3 or 4 engine drives. They all have a certain amount of hours they're going to last, projected hours. Like let's say an air-cooled gas engine's 3,000 hours. Let's just say you got a Trailblazer, 3,000 hours, or the 335 Lincoln or whatever it is. I don't remember. You divide that purchase cost by the amount of expected hours, and forget even the maintenance stuff yet. What does it cost just to turn that machine on an hour, the machine itself? Now you can add in fuel consumption, you can add in your maintenance costs or your oil changes, expected repairs or whatever, but you also need to be making every single hour that runs. I've got to be making enough to replace that machine one day. So like, you need to break down those numbers, and it's usually pretty small, but if you take a $9,000 engine drive and you expect to get 3,000 hours out of it, you know, we're already at $3 an hour on the meter just to start the machine, right? So like, you got to know that baseline. Well, if you're thinking you're out here charging $65 an hour to weld, go ahead and knock 3 off. That's not coming back. And then you can start marking down costs, and all of a sudden you realize you're out here doing this stuff for $15 an hour, and you should have kept your $28 an hour job that you quit. You know, it's like you run the numbers. You better run the numbers.
Yeah. Are you a big like Microsoft Excel guy?
No, I don't use Excel at all.
No. What do you use to figure all that stuff out?
I sketched all that stuff out a long time ago. So I've got the rough numbers as far as machine replacements in the back of my head, just like, truck depreciation and all of that kind of stuff. We use QuickBooks.
Okay.
And my wife, sets up depreciation schedules and all that kind of stuff. So we not quick. Sorry. QuickBooks. Yes.
That's what I use.
I've used a couple different softwares over the year, but it's QuickBooks. So, when you're going to replace machines and that kind of stuff, you've got to know if I buy this bandsaw and expect this many years and all that kind of stuff, you've got to break that down into what's going to replace it 15 years from now. What's the lifespan, and just make sure that's all padded into what you're coming up with as your value, what you're selling your clients.
Dude, you got to get on Microsoft Excel.
I ran it as a kid growing up. I mean, that was a big program back in the day.
It was, but it's such a powerful tool.
It is.
Well, I mean, just more and more, because you can type in formulas. So let's say you've got like an entire tab for equipment depreciation. You could say original cost, anticipated maintenance, life cycle, and then you can, type that down to an hourly wage. And all you have to do is pop in the initial cost and, what the life cycle is, and boom, it spits everything else out for you. So you know exactly what your margins are going to be. So when I figured out my cost of doing business, that's what I used. It was a Microsoft Excel. My first invoicing software, like I would use Microsoft Excel, and I just built myself a template, and then I would just type in, the work that I was going to be doing, the number of hours I was going to be there, this, that, and everything, and boom, it automatically generates everything for you.
Yeah, no, that is valuable. And my buddy Jason sent me one. I do have Excel on my computer, and he sent me one that he uses to estimate his plasma cutting jobs. Mm-hmm. And so and it was a great little spreadsheet figuring out how to, cost everything out and quote, and you can get your arc on times from your program, saying how long is the actual cut time of this program and blah, blah. So that kind of stuff certainly helps you be a good estimator. And I broke down, the purchase of this plasma table into how much does it cost, and of course it varies, and a lot of tools vary. They're not X amount of dollars an hour. It depends on what you're doing with it and how you're cutting and what material. But what the payback period of that, almost $40,000 investment was going to be, how long I expected to be, and what we usually work for an hour, and then figure out we got to add in the cost of that machine if we're running it. So the labor rate just running that plasma table per hour has to be higher, because it's a consumer and a very valuable tool that's depreciating, has to be higher than just, turning on a MIG machine and making some tacks on some little framework, So like there's even varying inside of the way you quote things, there's varying ranges depending on what we're doing and who we're doing it for, know? But yeah, figuring out those costs, huge. I like
the, on a lot of plasma systems, they have like the output. So it'll tell you, here's how many pierces, here's how, the run time, here's arc on time, arc off time. It gives you all those values so you can understand, okay, if I'm cutting a 1/2 inch material, like here's the travel speed. This is what it's going to cost me per hour based on this. So you can start dialing in your bids a lot tighter, just to be more factual of what you're going to be doing, because you don't want to be the lowest bid and you don't want to be the highest bid, because most contractors, or customers, they're going to get rid of the lowest and the highest, and they're going to say, I want to stay somewhere right here in the middle, because I don't want to underpay, because I'm not going to get what I'm looking for, and I don't want to overpay because I don't want to get robbed, essentially. So these couple of bids that I have here right in the middle, now I'm going to start going through these different bid packages and figuring out exactly who I'm going to go with. Yeah,
you're spot on. You're spot on.
Yes, business is, and that's one thing that people don't understand when they want to start their own business. It's like there's a lot of growing pains. There's a lot of 60, 70, 80 hours a week. Like you said, I was anticipating, I was making $28 an hour when I left. Now I'm making 15. Well, damn, how do I fix that?
How do we got to pump those numbers up?
How do I quit working for free?
Yes.
That's the first job that I did. I had a good mentor, Bill Warren, when I decided, I was like, I'm going to be, a mobile welding business guy. And like, that's what I'm going to do. And he gave me one of his clients. He's like, here, he kind of grew out of that area. He got into bigger and better things. He's like, I'm going to give you this client because like I'm no longer set up to support them, just because of his goals and aspirations with his company.
Growth, yeah.
But it was perfect for somebody starting off a small mobile welding business out of the back of a pickup truck. And like I put together my bid package, and I was like, okay, cool. Like, this is what I'm going to submit to him for the type of work that I got to do, is replacing a bunch of stair treads for this apartment complex. And it was like galvanized pans. And then you do a concrete pour over, once you weld it back in between the stringers, you do a concrete pour over, you screed it back off, and you're on to the next one. And so I was like, I want to make $25 an hour. So I'll put that in there. And, it's going to take me X amount of hours to do this. And I showed it to my buddy, and I said, I'm going to have this much concrete. I figured out all volume and everything, this, that, and everything. And, here's my consumables and cut-off wheels and portaband blades and this, that, and everything. And he looks at my bid, and he's like, You're really cutting your throat on this. I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, you're not charging enough. I was like, why? I think, like $20, $25, that's a pretty comfortable area for me. It's more than what I'm making now. And he's like, charge him $100 an hour. And I was like, what? He goes, charge him $100 an hour, and then $75 for every stair pan you're going to cut out. I was like, wait, you want me to charge him hourly and by the piece in the same job? He's like, do it. And I was like, oh man, like I really need this money.
It's scary, isn't it?
I was like, man, I really need this. So I like redid the quote in my Microsoft Excel, and I sent it back to my buddy Bill, and I was like, how's this? And he's like, perfect, submit it. And I was like, oh, I don't know about this. So like I got the bid, I got it back, and I like forwarded it to the client, and I'm like, I'm sitting there at my computer, and like every 5 minutes, refresh, refresh,
yeah,
refresh.
I've done that.
And then, like hours later, they're like, okay, when can you start? Oh, dude, like it was like my heart was like blowing out of my chest. But had I just hit submit and not consulted with my buddy, dude, I'd have been out there working for free.
Yep.
And they had more work than you could shake a stick at.
Absolutely. And people hear those. I know that same feeling, man. You told that story, and I was like, man, I'm inside of that story. I felt that 100 times. And then you get scared, and you throw the big numbers, and you're nervous. But then you also still realize that you didn't walk away from that project a millionaire. Like you're still talking about the costs and the time you didn't get paid for, and the planning, and I forgot the trowel at Lowe's. We got to go pick up a trowel, whatever.
Yep.
It's just like you got to get paid for all that time. And what people hear these numbers, and you're a mobile welder. Let's say I was working for my last job. I quit in 2010. I was making $19.50 an hour. That's the highest I've ever been paid hourly to be a welder. And quit that job. And so anything above that seemed to be like a lot of money. Right. And then hearing about guys driving around charging $75, $85, $95, $105 an hour, you think, God, those guys are crushing it.
Yeah.
Until you're charging those rates, and you still realize that, like, the cost of doing business is high. You're hustling. There's a lot of untime paid, and this is where the market rate's at, and this is what you got to be charging. I was so scared to throw those numbers out because, again, coming from very modest means, where a $20 bill in your pocket was a $20 bill, and it meant every $100 was a lot of money. You start throwing around this, so it's just the again, coming even full circle again. once you learn how to play in that market, and then you separate your emotions from your dollars, and then you can explode into where you need to be. But as long as you're scared and nervous about the decisions you're making, it's going to be hard to make the right decisions, which is why your buddy played a huge factor there. You need to ask somebody, you need to find that mentor, you need to get consulting, you need to go to that small business, workshop and learn some stuff, because you don't know what this stuff's worth,
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know. Like, I thought I was going to be making a bunch of money off this client. And then once I submitted the bill that my buddy told me, like, by the time I got done, I was like, okay, I made a decent amount of money here, and I did a lot of work for him. I worked for this
a lot of work,
probably a year and a half that I was doing these stair pans, because they had so much. But had I had they accepted my original bid, how do you back out of that and be like, oh yeah, I'll do. Well, I'm not making any money on this. Instead of charging you $25 an hour, I need to charge you $100 an hour. They're not going to go for that. They're going to find somebody else. Like, how do you can't just backtrack. So, like, luckily I had somebody I could lean on and say, hey, how's this look to you?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, you're not going to survive on that. You might as well just not get into business.
Yeah. And your reputation's on the line too. When this is just another word of advice. You just can't quit. Get the damn job done. Even if you are losing your hind end, your reputation is built slowly, but it can be destroyed in an instant. I mean, quick. So it takes a long time for people to believe in you, and it takes a really short time for them to lose faith and trust in you. So get the job done. Don't complain. Don't make a scene. Don't start whining about how you underbid the job and I can't come back tomorrow. I got to go over here and do this. Just get the job done and eat it, and then learn from it. Don't ever do it again. Don't ever make the mistakes again. So grow from those mistakes really quickly,
Yeah, and then like professionalism is another big thing. Learning how to talk to your clients. Because like if you've been out there on the pipeline for the past 5 to 7, you went out and you got your work experience, and you've been working with a bunch of roughnecks and iron workers and pipeliners and everything for the past 5 to 7 years. You can't go talking to your clients the same way that you've been talking to your coworkers for the past couple of years.
Yeah, and
there's a big difference in dialect.
And it seems the generation these days, there's a big disconnect. And I was brought up in a world and where I watched my father exemplify this. He had a professional dialect, and he had a sitting around the campfire with your buddies dialect. Yeah. And the way I'm going to talk to you on this podcast is one way, but if me and you were having a beer around the campfire, it might have a slightly different tone,
Right.
But you've got to be able to do that with your customers, your wife, your children, people you love and people you hate. It's just like, you've got to have a professional and a personal dialect. And I talk to my friends in a different way I talk to my clients, and that's an okay thing. There's nothing fake or phony about that. That's me valuing or seeing the value of professionalism delivered to a customer who that's what they expect, And so, yeah, I have seen some interesting things in what people think is acceptable ways to talk to their clients. And I think the younger generation, especially with, you can see and hear anything you want these days on the internet, and I think what they have grown to believe is acceptable. The internet is not. That's not the gauge. Yeah. The internet is not the gauge of what you can and should say to people. Yeah, that is not what you should say.
That's not the benchmark you want to roll off of.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's a completely different mindset. Like, you don't want to use LOL in an email. There's certain ways that you conduct and do business and stuff. And you've got to learn to separate that. When I showed up to do a quote, I would wear like a nice pair of jeans, I'd polish up my work boots a little bit, and I'd put on a polo. Like I said, I didn't come from a lot of money. So, I dressed the best I could to go speak with a client. Yeah. However, on Tuesday, when I show up to do the work, I'm going to have my holy jeans on and my ripped up shirt and, my sweat stained welding jacket and this, that, and everything. I've already, now I'm going to impress you with my work.
That's it. Because on Monday, you needed to be a different person than what you needed to be on Tuesday. Monday, you needed to be the business guy, but some days you're the guy that needs to lay the welds.
Exactly.
And we're talking about two different people with, two different focuses at a moment in time.
Yeah, it's a different mindset. You got to be able to switch, flip that switch.
Absolutely.
Turn it on, turn it off. You get a phone call, depending on who's on the other end of that line, you've got like a different way that you have to conduct yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, there's a lot to it that, that people, you're not going to learn that in welding school. You're going to learn that. And like, I was kind of like when a lot of the companies I worked for, it was, you're not supposed to talk to the client. Don't talk to the client. Don't talk to the GC. Don't, just like keep your head down, do the work. I was one of the people that I was fortunate enough that I could walk up and chat with a GC or, the superintendent or, whoever and carry on that conversation because I could. This is very similar to being in the military. Am I talking with my Marines or am I talking to my superiors? You kind of change that mentality. So like that kind of led me, and I learned that whole business side that when you show up to, do a scope of work or, figure out what the client needs, you dress and conduct yourself a little bit different than the day you're going to show up and perform the work.
Absolutely. And learn how to use full sentences and write in paragraph form in an email where you're trying to sell $100,000 job to a customer. They would probably like to see proper punctuation and no misspellings. That stuff's undervalued. And especially when a lot of us come from, I'm a kinetic learner. I've got to see it. I got to touch it, got to feel it and do it. And that's how I learn. I got to put my hands on it. I got to see it. And I think that also led it, for my reading comprehension is not that great. And
right there with you.
I learned proper writing format and punctuation and how to write professionally because I needed to and I had to. And so, even I think it's hard for kids who got into this trade because they're kinetic like us. You want to touch and do, but you can't. There's the soft skills and the peripheral skills of being able to formulate the body of an email, writing an impressive resume, having a great, well laid out website, with good headings and a bio and all that kind of stuff. Those are things that help convince people that you have the ability to make their problems go away. And that's just something I think, again, if that's not your strong suit, man, you're going to have to invest a little time in that.
Yeah.
If this is what you want to do, you're going to have to invest a little time in how to body an email professionally and how to sign off and just not sound like a big goober, like you need to be a professional. I stress that a lot.
Or you need to find a good mentor, or you need to find the appropriate tools, or you need to hire somebody.
Yeah. Or hire somebody. That's right. Yeah. That's right. You don't have to become the person you need. Yeah. You can hire the person you need. Yeah.
Yeah. I suck at accounting. Therefore, I hire a good one.
That's it. And I would prefer to be welding and fabricating. And that's my wife takes care of all the books and the taxes and all of that kind of stuff. And she has the ability to do that. Thank the Lord. But that's not what I need to be doing with my time. My time's more valuable building things out here in the shop or visiting clients or looking at a job, so like even figuring out, what your strong suits are, what brings you a lot of joy and fulfillment, and then do those things and pay somebody to do the rest of the crap.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of crap you can pay people for.
Oh yeah. And you got to be really honest with yourself too.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know if you've checked it out yet or not, but have you seen the Chat GPT?
Man, I just heard. I live in a cave. I just say, be honest with you, Jason. I learn about things 10 years after they become cool, and then I'm like, wow, this has been going on. I just heard about all of this stuff, and man, that stuff's crazy.
It is.
That stuff is insane.
But you can use that to, like, if you're not good at typing up a professional, well written email or response to an email, you could like type in your jargon into Chat GPT and be like, help me clean this up for like to respond to somebody from a corporation or something, and it'll like done immediately.
Yeah.
I mean, you can use that to develop a business plan. You can use it to, write emails. I mean, I haven't looked at it yet, but you could probably use it to do a bid.
I wouldn't doubt it.
I would not doubt it. I actually, I was messing around with it because I kept hearing about this thing, and I was like, let me see if it knows what's up. So I told it, I said, write me a pre-qualified welding procedure that meets D11 requirements for shielded metal arc welding for a vertical groove weld. And it literally spit out an entire WPS. Not in the correct format, but if you knew where to put that information.
But if you could, if you trained it, maybe you could.
Dude, and I cross-checked it because, like, I could do a pre-qualified D11 for SMAW in, like, 5 minutes. And this thing, like, spit it out in 10 seconds, and I'm verifying it. And I'm like, yes. Damn, this thing is good. So, I mean, like, that's another tool. So, like, whereas, like, when you do a material takeoff or you go out to, a job site to do a layout or something like that, you use a calculator or, something to that effect. Tape measures, lasers. My buddy Charles McCarthy's using a, he's got like a 3D image scanner, so he can like go out there and like do an entire 3D image scan of the job site and figure out, okay, if I'm going to build this stair and rail section, here's, my benchmark, here's, the slope, here's everything I need to do based off of the configurations of the job site. Yeah. Use the tools to your advantage that you have at your disposal.
And that, I think that's the technology. And again, I'm far behind the curve on the 3D scanning stuff, but a good friend of mine, Lex, do you know Alex Beluski? He is in tune and dialed in with all this stuff. And he was telling me I saw him at Connex about the little unit he has, and he's sending it all over the place to fab shops, and they'll scan their job sites, send him back, and he's drawing steel packages based on these scans. But you set the thing up, and it's mapping this room, and I can just pick it up and go drop it on the other side of the room and turn it on, and it can find the points and reconnect and just keep growing that image. It can find the spots behind itself or whatever. It's just like, to me, I'm just like, I'm still trying to learn how to use a laser pointer over here, and it's like these things are like that kind of stuff, though, is going to change the fab world. And it's going to be like everything. There's a high upfront cost. There's certainly a barrier to entry as it's brand new, and everything's going to get outdated really quickly. But at some point, it's going to be just like, the MIG machine was, or the CNC plasma table, or the whatever. It's going to be the staple. It's going to be the standard. Every small fab shop in my town has a CNC table. Well, I was in Morristown and saw the first water jet that came into East Tennessee. I don't even remember what year it was. I was a teenager, but it was supposedly the first water jet to drop in a shop in East Tennessee or something. And we were all just mind blown, like, wow, look at what this thing can do. Well, CNC tables are like the bare bones standard for operating a successful business these days, And so it's like that technology right there, especially if you're a turnkey shop like me or like McCarthy Fab. I think that's Charles, right? I just know him as McCarthy Fab. I've chatted with him a little bit.
He's a good dude.
Yeah, definitely. And he's blowing and going down there, it seems like. It will be the staple very soon in any turnkey shop like mine, that I go out and take field measurements, order raw materials, fabricate a product, and then go install it, crane it into place, whatever. We're doing the whole thing. We don't build stuff. A lot of shops just build stuff and send it out to be installed by somebody else, or they've got guys that aren't even capable of taking field measurements, and they can only build things in their shop based off a blueprint that somebody else drew. We're right there in the middle where, that's an actual, but we're right there in the middle where we understand geometry just enough to go out, take a handful of field measurements, build a product that fits, and go install it. Right. Well, the 3D scanning and imagery stuff is going to absolutely change accuracy and really what you can do. There are things right now I couldn't do that if I could plot that and put it into a SolidWorks format and start pulling dimensions and radiuses of a helix and this kind of stuff, then man, the world is wide open as soon as you learn that technology. For things that I just can't do now, I might be able to do in the future. So like, you got to stay on that wave, and you really got to be on the fore end of it, or you get left behind, really, is what that's what I've noticed. But
you want to do enough to keep up with the times. You don't want to stay on the leading edge. They say it's a leading edge, but that's the bleeding edge, because that's
the bleeding edge. That's right.
That's where you're an early, technology adopter. You're going to be the first one to experience any problems. Like
it's the riskiest place to be.
Exactly.
Right?
If you went out and bought a laser, like right when they came out, you're going to be the one you're the guinea pig for those companies. To make their stuff better. So if you wait 5 years before, once it comes to be, affordable, then you go out and buy it. You're still staying up to date. You're ahead of the other shops that are in your area. That's like when I first got into construction. I got out of the Marines in 2005, and I got into construction like immediately. Lasers were like all the rage, and they were relatively affordable. And I actually saved my company like a bunch of money. They ended up in litigation because of it, because they had a set of drawings. Like you said, like a lot of companies are relying on somebody else to do the measurements, and they're building the stuff according to print. Well, they were building all these stairs and handrails and all these different stringers according to print. Well, I would go out there before we set anything up. I would go out there before we set anything up, and I had this. I remember it's a Johnson laser level. I spent like $20 on this damn thing. It was like Home Depot, and I was like, "Oh, this is going to be cool." Had a little tripod on there and everything, and I checked it, and I was like. We went to hang the stair section. I was like, that's not going to work. And I set the builders, this little laser and everything up, and I started pulling dimensions and everything based off the blueprints. And I was like, this building is 3 inches higher than our center pad. And the guy that's working with me, like, I don't understand. It's still going to work. And I was like, no, because you can't have any more than a 7-foot step into the residence. This is going to be a 10-inch, or 7-inch
rise.
7-inch rise. I was like, this is going to be a 10-inch rise. It's not going to work. And so, like, I called the GC over there, and like he's like yelling at me, like all this stuff's the same, this, that, and everything. Like, dude, your elevation over here is off from where your pad is and where that other house is. Yep. There's a 3-inch difference between there. And I said, this isn't going to work. So they had to redo the, and they were already in contract negotiations that every house was going to be the same. However, elevation from one house to the next and that center pad where everything kind of linked up because it was like a T-shaped stair. They had to go back and redo everything.
Wow.
They had to,
nightmare.
Yeah, they had to go back and redo the entire stair stringer and everything.
Oh, nightmare, man.
And all the houses were already built. So then we had to start doing custom fabrication based off of a set of prints. So like the back charges and all that stuff, they were just stacking.
Eating it.
That company made
my gosh.
The company I was working for made a killing doing that.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and that's just it. Those simple tools, man, can and know-how, I think is super important if you want to fab install, if you want to be the installer. Because you're probably like me. I will do it, but I don't like installing other people's products.
Yeah.
I want the control of the whole process,
Yeah,
so
if anything goes wrong, it's my fault.
It's my fault. Yeah, it's mine. And I can see things coming up and just watch the whole thing unfold and do it from start to finish. That's kind of my thing. Or that's what I enjoy the most anyway. So, but it forces you to know how to do things and how to get shit done, you know? So like you got to sharpen in those areas as well.
You got to have that emotional connection with your work, but not with your money.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, seriously. That's a pretty good way to put it.
Yeah. Well, hell, man, that's probably a good way to end it. Why don't you, I'm sure everybody that's listening to this podcast knows where to find you, but just in case they don't, where can they find Petty Welding?
Only on Instagram. I'm a one-hit wonder and have at Petty Welding.
Okay. But you got a website too.
Yeah, and a website, pettywelding.com. Yep.
Okay.
I don't do any of the other channels and social media, so that's all I can keep up with. So.
Good for you, man. You need
man.
Throw your wife over there on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
That's actually another good one. I definitely stray away from the TikTok, but yeah. Instagram's really good, and then LinkedIn's really good. You can build a lot of connections on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I've never I may have signed up for that one time and then never went back. I'm not sure. So
it was a little weird back in the day, but like now it's really good. Especially for like businesses and networking and linking up with other people that are like in your same industry and area. Yeah, check that out because I mean there's a lot of people that are going to be looking for, folks like you in that territory through LinkedIn.
Okay.
But yeah, check that out.
That sounds like my kind of place.
Yeah, it's like the business version of Instagram.
The dancing videos is not really my thing.
No, stay off that. Get with Nick Bazzatis. He's on he does LinkedIn a little bit.
Okay,
yeah,
I will.
Just check with him. But yeah, man, it was a pleasure talking to you. Thanks for taking the time to come on here and educate the listeners.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Really enjoyed it, and always love talking business. There's a lot of guys out there that have great technical abilities and advice and can talk about waveforms and spray transfers and all these things. But I really enjoy the business conversation. So
we can do that too.
Thanks for letting it head in that direction. So.
Oh man, my pleasure.
Have a good night, Jason. Thanks, man.
You as well, sir.
All right.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed the conversation between Drew and I, and it gives you something to think about if you're planning on starting your own business, or gives you some things to consider if you've already established your own business. Be sure to give Drew a follow on Instagram at Petty's Welding. You can find me on Instagram as well at Junkies Podcast. Hope you all have a great rest of your week. Stay safe out there, and until next time, make every weld better than your last.